All right. All right. All right. All right. You know what time it is? Open court discussion time in the counselor's corner. Now that many of you are done playing chef during Thanksgiving and have transitioned into Santa without the bag for Christmas, let's get serious. I am your host, David Lorenzo Glover, aka the Controversial Counselor. Joining me is my co-host, Herb Lewis, the Big Bad Wolf.
Oh,
Herb, where you
Never
at on the
get that.
video?
Yeah, Herb,
dark,
where you at, man?
dark
You
mode.
feeding the
Thanksgiving
cat.
leftovers.
Uh,
You feeding the cat. He ain't got time for us right now.
all right, we gonna go on. Willie A. Price speaks the truth,
The whole
aka
truth and nothing but the truth.
aka WAP, and it don't stand for you know what.
That's right.
And finally, Christine comes correct all the time, Brooks.
Beautiful.
So this past Monday, we had discussed the topic: who runs the family, mother or father? And of course, you know we never come up with no
Yeah.
uh, conclusive outcome. These conversations are ongoing. But tonight, we're going to talk about why do some people cling on to emotionalism, and people like, what the hell is emotionalism? But basically, it's people that kind of respond with this excessive emotion. Everything they do is out of emotion. Every decision they make is they're so emotional. Where sometimes you just simply need a little logic, but they always their responses and they deal with everything with emotions. Know that we will not have all the answers, but for certain, we will provide a different twist when it comes to emotions. I can't wait to hear what my co-hosts have to say. Okay, let's get to the three essential talking points. Number one, how has withholding sex from spouse and your partner, worked out for you? Because we know some people still do that. You see it. Some people deal with emotionalism oftentimes on social media and go straight to social media and talk about what they ain't gonna do, what they gonna do, and all of that stuff. So we're gonna tackle that. Number two, once you cross the line of intimacy with a friend, can you still be just friends? Mm, mm, mm. I don't know. I
WH.
don't know. Now, what? And number three, why does Native Black Americans like to remain ignorant when it comes to the criminal justice and political systems in America? So there you have it, another great one. Please make sure you like and share our video and subscribe to the YouTube channel, The Controversial Counselor. So we're here Monday night, just getting back from, and I had an extra day break, so today was definitely hard. I was sitting there pondering, like at five something, like, man, do I really feel like doing this? Like, I should
Yes, you
just
do.
call in and just sleep all day or just lay around. But I got up and said I got a couple meetings that I got to go to. But I think when I got there, most people were still in that same type of mode, like we just not ready to be back. That little one day did something to us. So that's where I'm at. That's what's going on in my world. Made it through. Now we just people already counting down. I think when I was leaving my faculty meeting today, one of the teachers said 17 days until Christmas break. So yeah, I already counting
I ain't
down.
mad at it.
Wow.
So that's what's going
Wow.
on in my world. People, talk to me. And before we go, we're not going to go into a long, drawn out conversation. I'm just asking you what's going on. How was your Thanksgiving or whatever the case
That's
is?
what I need it right there. That's the part I needed right there. Well, how was my Thanksgiving? Have you ever had a not an unforgettable Thanksgiving, but a forgettable Thanksgiving? Yes, this is it. Have you ever had a forgettable Thanksgiving? Well, I was invited out to Thanksgiving dinner, so I didn't have to cook, so I wasn't mad about it. Invited out for dinner, had a great dinner, sat, watched movies, had a great time with my friend and her family. came home, was all excited, had a great time. 2 days later, my friend calls me talking about her Thanksgiving dinner, how she had dinner with her family and her friends and watched this movie, and that I needed to watch this movie. And I'm like, well, wait a minute. I was at the house with her having Thanksgiving, watching the movie that she was talking about. She forgot I was there.
Wow. You
She was
blended in with
talking
the
to me,
drapes.
telling me about it, forgot that I was there.
You blended in with the drapes.
I had a forgettable Thanksgiving.
Wow. Interesting.
So with that,
I told you my life is humorous.
That means you were not important to her.
I wasn't important to her.
all right.
Forgettable
Anybody else?
Thanksgiving.
Hey, Lakia, how you doing?
Everyone doing
Top that one,
good.
Herb. Top that one, Herb.
I'm just putting it out there.
I had a lovely Thanksgiving with family. It was. I did Thanksgiving with all my kids first, and then we went to my younger 3 kids' uncle's house for more fun, and it's always a great time. And I did no cooking.
Okay.
Lovely.
That's
No
even
cleaning,
better.
no cooking.
That's even better.
Yeah, I went over to my family's house. My uncle passed away, so went to
Sorry to hear that.
family. Thank you. And the funeral is
Feel
this
lost.
Saturday, so be going back to just lay him to rest. And he was a great, great guy. He really was. He impacted all of our lives in the family. So this one's gonna be a funny one. I mean, not a funny one. I'm sorry, a sad one. Somebody keeps trying to make me laugh. I apologize. Uh, but yeah, it's going to be a sad one. But other than that, it was a memorable Thanksgiving. And one, I'm sad to say, guys, I was in a relationship and I'm now single. So I was going through some sadness, but I was grateful to have people around me that helped me make it through that time. And I'm over it all.
Aww. You feel better?
Yeah.
You feel better now?
Much better.
Well, we're glad to have you back on the show.
But your story was very interesting. It was funny.
Damn,
A
Willie.
very
I would've
forgettable Thanksgiving.
I would have cussed their ass out. Boom.
Why would you cuss it out for that? I don't see maybe it wasn't intentional.
Hey, yeah, when he
looking
blended
at the
in with the
phone.
drapes. That's what she said.
Man, I'm looking at the
Said that
phone.
man-
I'm like,
said that man was
tell me
obsolete.
I've been offended.
Yeah.
I was there watching the movie with you. Oh, you was? Oh, I forgot.
Or she
Just
could have
say
been
you on
saying,
crack.
maybe you ain't make no power move that she was waiting for.
And I was well behaved, so that's probably what was the problem.
That was probably the problem.
I was too well behaved.
Man. Come on now, Willie.
Hey, I'm losing my touch, man. I'm not reading the signs right or something. I gotta start acting like I'm a blind man and start feeling my way around like a braille or something.
Just be careful of the bumps that are a little too big to be braille, shall we say. My Thanksgiving was pretty much cut short. Yeah, Dallas lost. I had to cover. Well, let me not say I had to cover. I actually opted to pick up shifts because my battery mate is tested positive for COVID. So y'all, be careful out there. It's running around. So I'm in the midst of a 10-day stretch, no days off. So that's my Thanksgiving in a nutshell.
So
you
you're
work on
off
Thanksgiving?
because of possible exposure, or
No, I'm working 10 straight. I'm in the midst of a 10-day straight.
because somebody else is off?
Oh.
Yeah, we had half of our staff sent home today.
Oh wow.
At least 4 people tested positive for COVID, and then exposure. We had to send a bunch of other people home to be tested. They can't come back unless they test negative. It was
Are they requiring the vaccination in your city? Are they making it mandatory in your city?
no, it is not mandatory.
Oh, okay. I didn't think it was in Missouri.
Well, to that, Willie, and I know this is a sidebar, and I think this is rather important. What it is a federal government mandate for companies that have at least 100 employees. The employees of that particular company have to have a COVID, because I'm sorry, not a COVID test, the COVID shot. I'm not going to call it a vaccine because that's not what it is. I'm going to call it the COVID shot.
But it's still being decided in the court, so it's not mandated yet.
Right.
Well, no.
Right.
There's certain states where that lawsuit is taking place. There's only 10 states, so the other 49 are still required by the federal mandate. That's the one thing you got to be careful of when court decisions are coming along. You have to understand who's filing and in what jurisdiction they're taking. Because if New York is not a part of that, so anybody in New York is still.
New York not filing it. They're not filing it at all.
Yeah. So what you're seeing, and I tip my hat to Republican-led states. You see Republican governors that are leading the charge, because what this falls on is forcing people to do something that's against their will. The Constitution stipulates that you actually have a right to do those things, and I know this segues into one of the talking points, so I'm just going to go ahead and start the boat there. This is the one thing that I always want people to understand, is how the system of laws function. And I was just reading about the Bill Cosby case, where they're filing a lawsuit, and that lawsuit is probably going to be heard by the Supreme Court. And essentially, and I want people to pay very close attention to this, essentially, if this case passes muster, we're going to have a whole lot of problem with people in their Fourth and Fifth Amendment rights, particularly the Fifth Amendment, which gives you the right to prevent yourself from incriminating yourself. In other words, you do have the right to remain silent. If this case overturns that, then you're going to see a whole lot of murkiness in that case, because what happened with the Bill Cosby case, in a nutshell, is that the deposition that he was given verbal agreement by that particular DA that what he disclosed in that deposition would not be used against him in the criminal proceeding. The DA that replaced him rescinded that. When you have a verbally binding agreement by a officer of the court, that agreement is binding and cannot be overturned. That was what they did Bill Cosby. There's people now that are in the uproar saying he should be in prison because he's a rapist. He's only a rapist, quote unquote, because he told about what he did, which is what we're supposed to have protections against. This is why I always caution people, understand what's going on in your municipality. Get involved in voting. I know people say voting doesn't work. It doesn't matter. We had a case here, I believe it's still pending, that has come down to them opening up sealed ballots to count them by hand because the vote came down to one vote. So when I talk about people voting, your local, whether it's your school board, alderman that fits your particular area, councilman at large, or councilman in your local jurisdiction, your state representatives, your state assembly, any of that, and your governor, those impact your life more than anything at the federal level, with the exception of your state representatives and House members. So I always urge people to get out there and vote and understand how the laws impact you, because from state to state, different laws vary. Like in Florida, and I hate to bring this case up regarding the Trayvon Martin case. People in other states saying that's not legal, but in Florida, what happened was legal. Now, whether you agree with it or not is a different story. And also, grand juries, we as a demographic are disproportionately represented, meaning we're not on those juries. So when a case comes down and it borders on a demographic of black, white, or Hispanic, or what any other ethnicity, we don't even have a chance to voice an opinion because we don't even appear on grand juries. We're not even on the rolls to be selected because, A, most of us aren't registered to vote, and those who are, votes on frequently that after a period of inactivity, they drop you from the voting roll. So your name come up even if you quote unquote are registered to vote. This is why I always impair people vote. Even if you go to write in, they count you and you're an active voter. That way, when these cases come down, you are a potential jury, you are a potential grand jury. Grand juries are important because that's where cases are indicted. An indictment
Uh,
means you're going to levy. Yes,
is this what the show is about today?
yes.
Yeah,
Talking
Yeah,
point.
that's one
yeah,
of the subjects.
it's one of the
He skipped
talking
it.
points.
He
Oh,
Yeah,
skipped
yeah,
okay.
it.
he
He
What are
skipped
skipped
we
it. He
that
skipped
talking
intro.
it, but
about today?
you
He
can't
just,
go
he just
from
took over
you
the
can't go
show. He
from
just took over the show like
yeah. Nah,
But that's why I said I'm going to segue into it.
Oh,
some
that was a
people
hell of a
probably want
segue.
it. Yeah.
No, no, that's fine. Y'all can bypass it. That's because I have to get out at 10:30. So I don't have the time that I normally would.
Oh, oh. So
oh,
this
understood. I
got
was lost. Oh, okay.
Yeah,
All
so
right.
I
yeah,
took
that's
the
what
order.
that
My
changed.
apologies.
If we're
But
gonna
So what was the topic though? What was that topic that he was talking on? What was on the topics you
African
had
American,
gave?
black. No, what is how does he put it?
Native
What was the
American,
National
topic?
Black
I heard you read it.
Africans. Is that what you say? National Black Americans? What is
Native Black
Native?
Americans.
Thank you. Native Black Americans. Why don't they care, or why are they ignorant about politics and what was it about the political system and something else?
How it works.
Something.
Okay.
well, if we have time, we're gonna go back to that. I want to stay on topic because some people probably came on for the point about the emotionalism, that conversation. So we're gonna jump back into that. Like, why do some cling into emotionalism? Is emotionalism a good or a bad thing? You're gonna start with Sir Ty. I think you came with you came with this topic question.
Hey, good evening, everyone. I
Oh,
heard you
okay.
guys. Did you say, "Oh God"? Yeah. Oh,
Hmm?
I heard you guys had a great Thanksgiving. I heard about Willie's outing or whatever. Didn't leave a mark that she remember him or whatever. Nah. So salute. Glad y'all had good time with your families. I'll be brief for my brother Herb going out at 10:30. So hello, Miss Christine, brother David,
What's
the
going
young
on?
lady below her, Lakeisha. No, no, no,
Nakia.
no, Nakia. See, I was gonna remember. I was gonna remember. I was gonna come around. My Thanksgiving was good. Jerk turkey was a success. I have no leftovers because
Okay.
people just loved it. I'll give y'all the recipe if you'd like. That jerk turkey, it's all about it. So, wow, I was just trying to get here. Real talk, I actually have some notes I wanted to say on this, but the reason that I came up with this topic or just wanted to suggest it is I think this is the perfect audience for it. So, number one, we all human. We all have emotions. We're not robots, although your boy Zuckerberg wants us to be. You can't figure us all out in the algorithm. And we're going to have emotions, even me. But it gets to a point where your emotions are supposed to fuel things based on your logic. And lots of times, someone has something in the background going on. And lots of times, our logic is not sound. So when we make decisions, they're largely from an emotional standpoint, and they're very often the wrong decisions. And because we're so emotionally vested into it, we don't want to back off that chance. And when our children look at us respond in this way, they pick these things up. So I'm going to give three examples to exemplify my point specifically. Number one, what made me think of this topic was I saw, and I don't want to make this about politics, but Brother Herb brought it up, and that's a great thing you said, my brother, about the whole juries and such. But when the Rittenhouse verdict was announced, there was nothing but misinformation. Okay, Herb, I'm gonna ask you by a show of hands. I shouldn't even say by a show of hands. You had many people because not all of us, but a lot of us tend to be, and I'm not pro Rittenhouse or against Rittenhouse, but I do like to follow things that are going on so that we can kind of see, okay, how is this applied? Because the one great thing about the law, has the law always been applied in, as you say, Native Black Americans, stateside Black Americans, ADOS, whatever the hell you want to call us? Has it been applied in our favor all the time? Absolutely not. But when it's misapplied, can it be corrected to whereas you can rectify those things and you can basically use the law against them? Absolutely. So one thing I was concerned about with the Rittenhouse thing, because I am a pro Second Amendment guy. I do not care what people think about things like the NRA or is this. You have just as much of a right to bear arms as they do. Now, whether you choose to not do it or not, that's your issue. But I was very concerned on how this verdict was going to be for the Second Amendment because I think we're the ones who need to take this. We need to defend ourselves. And if you even come to arms, it comes to arms. So you had plenty of people who had no idea of this case. He went there to shoot black people. He killed black people. He did this. And I'm in my head like, he was a racist, white supremacist. And I'm saying to myself, okay, I'm hearing some noise in the background, but I'm saying to myself, have these people read even one article of this case? Again, I'm not pro anything, but apparently when you're black and you go against something that goes against the grain of what people consider something white or against a white, that emotionalism thing, your logic tends to fail. Again, this is not all, but I'm like, that Kyle Rittenhouse didn't kill any black people. Right? you know that he shouldn't have crossed a gun across state lines. You know that gun was given to him across state lines, and it was only 15 minutes away. Well, these how is he a white supremacist? Tell me what okay, usually most white supremacists, because they're very predictable in their behavior, and I'm going to tie this to emotionalism, they're very predictable in their behavior. They usually have journals, diaries, logs, posts saying things about the J word, or I call them the Israeli lobby, so that your flood stream doesn't get tagged, Mr. David. But they usually have that about black people, about anyone else that isn't them. They looked at his phone, scrubbed it, the prosecution, nothing. This was just an old, naive kid who just knew how to work guns or what have you. Mm-hmm. And once you saw the actual video, the long form video, he was chased by people and it was clear self-defense. And once I started showing the video, now it's, oh, well, what about the other times? And I'm like, wait a minute, dude. I just showed you this video. I pointed this out in one topic in the thread. And I'm like, so you can't say, you know what, my bad. I wasn't that informed of the case, but I get it. The emotionalism is anything white, and I'm not defending white people here, but anything white that goes against the grain, we're supposed to all be in this because of all of the past, even though Rittenhouse wasn't a slave owner. Rittenhouse didn't own any slaves. Why are you directing this to him? And again, I'm not making this about him. I'm using this for my point about emotionalism. We're emotionally tied into it. Oh, well, this basketball player, hint, from Akron, Ohio, said that he this. So it must be true. Well, why are we so emotionally invested in him? Is it because many identify with his plight, that his mother wasn't a didn't do anything, and they never give the men involved in his life any props or whatever? So now he's a political activist, and we buy into this. But then this ties into relationships. I used to literally go to court, but I used to have a job where I used to have to go to court years ago, and I would just stop, and there was so many women that would call. I'm not making this a man or women thing, because I can tell you about men and they're freed a criminal ass friend type of thing, but because they've had good times, smoked trees with this dude or whatever, this murderer should be let loose, but you got an emotional tie to him. What I was saying particularly about the court was I've seen plenty of scenarios where I'd be in court and just listen to cases where women, I look at it from a parental perspective. And you know what, Miss Daphne, and salute to you and good evening, by the way. His mother, he had no right to be there. Like, what the
Right.
fuck are you gonna do there, Kyle? But just like he had no right to be there, neither did that pedo that he killed, who came further away, or any of
Mhm.
the other people. They weren't there for justice. They were there because they are agent provocateurs, rioters,
Mhm.
and all that stuff. But what I was saying about the court case was I would see women say, you made a 911 call saying these words or whatever, he's this, and now you're saying you don't remember it happening, and this is your 20th 911 call. And I'm like, damn, because I'm looking at this straight from an emotion. I mean, not an emotion, from a
Can
logic
I can
perspective.
I just interject? Just
Sure.
thank you.
Well, hold on a second.
Um,
I'm not finished with the spiel, but I'm just simply saying, just giving examples on how this all ties in. Now, I get it. People have emotional ties. I already said we're all human, but of course, the case gets dismissed, and then she's back in court again with this guy. And with us, when I say us, yes, I'm talking about stateside Black people. With us, this emotionalism gets us nowhere. Emotionalism is not going to make you do better so that you'll be able to provide better for your family. It'll give you a temporary high. I remember last
Mhm.
week we had a discussion about motivation. It'll give you that temporary high, and then you back into how do we actually do this? And we've long gotten away from that. So that's my thing with the emotionalism argument and why it doesn't. And in fact, it's used against us so
Mhm.
much. All
Yeah.
they know is they just got to throw a performer, an entertainer that people like, and then whatever they say, we just going to fall into it. Yeah, you're right. You're right.
Well,
So
that's the thing. Most people, I don't even know if they even got any emotions invested in it. It's kind of like follow the leader, duck, duck, goose type shit, whatever. Like whatever this person is saying, I'm gonna follow the lead and I'm gonna get my emotions invested in this, but I don't know anything what's going on because I see it's posting, it's trending, it's a topic. Now I want to chime in and have something to say about it. But soon as somebody call you out on something and question you about what you said, now all of a sudden shit, you get emotions in that. Want to get an attitude or block somebody or whatever the case is.
blocking
Whatever we
never
do.
happens. What are you talking about, David? That never happens.
But that's my spiel. I want the other panels to chime in on their thoughts
I
of
know you do. Let me say
emotionalism.
this real quick. What goes viral is all by design. You know, that's how they manipulate our emotions. But go ahead.
Kia, you had your hands up.
I think I didn't forgot my thought. No, I'm only joking.
I was
Sir
talking
Sir Tick. I'm
Tice,
sorry,
Tice,
Sir Tice.
Tice,
I'm sorry.
Tice, Tice.
Okay. I just wanted to just kind of interject on the fact that I remember hearing some things about how the judge was interacting in the court. To me, that was my only main concern when I started seeing how he was talking with him and having communication, how the whole court process was going. I've been in courts, and see some, you see some judges that try to give some leniency, have some openness in their courtrooms. I've seen it, but it seemed a little too
Seemed inappropriate.
really.
Mhm.
So it doesn't matter if he didn't go in there. I'm not saying it doesn't matter, but yeah, no, he didn't go out shooting black people. But is there still a due process?
Can
And
I
you
ask you a
still have
question?
to
How
follow
familiar?
that, yeah, innocent till proven guilty, but there's a due process that
But
needs
the
to
due
be done
process. Did you see
appropriately.
just briefly the first person, the
Let
pedophile,
as I
filed
as
on?
I as, if I don't mind, if I can just finish my thought, please, just real
Okay, no,
quick.
no, but you
Okay,
said,
okay.
but clearly,
But I'm just talking, as you were. Just
no,
give me a
but we have
second.
to talk about facts because we're talking about
As
lives.
I was sharing, uh, there is still a due process that should be followed, and and it shouldn't. And actually, he should, the judge, in my opinion, as well as he should keep a uh, he shouldn't show his
Biased.
bias. He was biased. You see it so openly. So it's basically we already knew the verdict
Give me
before
an
the
example
verdict
of how he
came,
was biased. I get
and
it.
For instance, as he was explaining about there was one black man on there, and then he was like, they're up there singing a song. It just like different little. Again, in my opinion, he showed too much biasness, and I felt like that was inappropriate in my opinion. And that's not off of emotion; it's just off of what to me,
Observation.
it's just my observation, and I think he just did a little too much to the left for me on that area.
I would have to agree, because to me, taking emotionalism out of it, I was looking at the fact that he would not allow the prosecution to refer to the deceased as victims. So I'm like, okay, I get it. But then to say they can be referred to as looters and arsonists and stuff like that. So now it went from being making sure that everything is fair to assisting with the defense. And I feel like it wasn't, in that respect, it wasn't completely unbiased. Now, maybe the verdict would have still come out the same way, and that's fine. But I still feel like, as a judge, he was inappropriate.
That 4-letter word always creeps up when I hear certain things, and I'm gonna put it out there. FEEL. You gotta get rid of that when you're talking about jurisprudence. One thing, if they feel that the judge was being biased, they can always file an appeal. That they have the right to. The prosecution can do that.
And maybe they will.
Hold on. 2, they can have that judge removed. It's called being disbarred. They can have that done.
That's not disbarred.
Disbarred is having the judge removed.
That's a lawyer.
Yeah.
Judges are lawyers. Judges have to be lawyers before the judges have to be attorneys before.
Go ahead. Okay. It's not a disbarment though, but go ahead.
They'll disbar them. They'll have them removed from the bench, and then they'll have them disbarred. Like I said, they can have the appeal filed. They can have them disbarred. They can have them removed from the bench, and they'll have them disbarred for that, because that's supposed to be a violation. What I always tell people is this: at the end of the day, was the letter of the law followed? That is the quintessential question that we have to remove all the emotion. So how an individual feels, what they think should have happened versus what happened. This is why I brought up the Bill Cosby case, because a lot of people fed into the emotionalism of it. We have this black man that's quote unquote raping white women, and he got off. That's how people were feeling, as opposed to the merits of the case. And the same thing that Sir Tice said about this case. There's also another thing that a lot of people didn't understand, was how the laws in Wisconsin are written when regarding arms. So that case was thrown out. And that was the one thing that people were upset about, because they felt it should have been applicable because he was in possession of a gun, quote unquote, illegally. As Sir Tice pointed out, that weapon was given to him when he crossed over into Wisconsin. Now, whether he should have been there or not is a whole different case. The reason why the judge, and I didn't see the case, might be speculating a little. The reason why the judge didn't allow them to be referred to as victims is because of this. A victim usually has absolutely, come on, boy, get down. A victim usually has no say in what happens to them. As Sir Tice pointed out, those individuals.
So I could see and understand that point. My thing is, but then he said that they can be referred to as looters and arsonists, and
because
how, when they haven't been tried as such?
He said they can be
And they're
referred
not
to,
allowed
not.
to defend themselves.
Can I ask y'all
He
And he
said
something?
they
don't know
can't.
he didn't know what
Can,
those people were out
can
there
I ask
doing.
y'all
That's not
something?
true. That's not true. That's
Can
not
I
true.
ask y'all something?
So
Can I
how
ask
is
y'all
that not
something?
true?
I'll tell you why it's not true. David, you're going to ask something. I politely asked, could I do a brief share? But go ahead and ask something. This
No,
is your show.
no, I want to ask, when the hell any of this shit ever been fair? What is the confusion in any of this? That's why I don't get no emotions tied up in it. They make the outcome, they make it do as y'all say, what they make it do, however they want it to end. And sometimes they, in certain cases, they say, I guess we better
Well,
we better make it work this way, whatever. For the most part, I don't get caught up in none of these trials or anything like that because I'm like, man, at the end of the day, they they're gonna stick with each other. And
well, that's
we're
what it's one way to say that. And listen, I'm a very cynical person. I hate to say, but to Miss Nakia's comment to me, that's why they do discovery. Okay, when they
Yep.
do discovery, they basically there's a reason why your background matters. Um, God damn it, I can't think of his name. Brower, I believe, or Bomber, Jonathan Bomber, or whatever. I was going to show him. Um, Before I even get into his background, Anthony Huber, a career criminal, came 51 miles. People love to make the big say, he crossed state lines, talking about Rittenhouse. State lines was 15 minutes away from where he lived. Huber came 51 minutes away. Who do you think really came to do trouble there when you look at that? That's why. And they were rioters, but that's why they do the discovery. David, can you share my screen just very briefly, please?
But they didn't want to address him as a killer they didn't want to address him as
Nikia,
let me I'm just interjecting a little piece. They didn't want to
mhm.
address him a certain way, so I think it should stay the same
Well,
as Christine is saying
there's a
across the
reason that the
board.
prosecution,
Don't address anyone else any kind of way if
no,
you want to protect his image
there's a
as
reason
well.
that the prosecution opted to not fight that hard because they knew that the defense would have said, oh, well, maybe he's not this. Well, let's look at his background, which is all public record. Let's look at
Hmm.
his background here. So, jurors, you be the judge, to whereas if the jurors didn't know about the background, that would have this. This is all strategy, a game of chess. Hey, David, may I share something, please? And again, let me say this.
listen,
Shout
you
out
can
to
do it, but I don't
no,
know how. I don't all this stuff, sharing screens and all that.
no,
That ain't my
you
forte.
just basically, if I say I have a, whoops, I won't do a video file, but I was going to share something. But by the way, let me say this because this is not going to be popular. Shout out to Kyle Rittenhouse. You murked. He murked. He did the Lord's work in murking a dude who was a pedo of 5 little boys. So shout out to Kyle Rittenhouse on that. And when I see black people, now when I get emotional, I'm showing my screen right now, but when I get emotional about this, it's because I know some people, boys and girls, who've gone through this. So if they got murked, good for them. Real quick, this is what the media didn't show you. Who's being chased right now is Rittenhouse. That's Rittenhouse right there, as they point out, and that's Rosenbaum, pardon me, who throws a bag at him and a gun just went off. If you hear the audio, but there's it is right there. The audio went off. Now, Rosenbaum is about to jump at Rittenhouse, and Rittenhouse like, what am I doing? And by the way, when they say, I hate to bring race into this, but when they say crazy white boy, let me go back to the stream. When they say crazy white boy shit, who jumping in front of a chopper or AK-47? You got to be out of your blipping mind. So now this guy is basically saying, I can't say I don't blame him for doing that when he jumps at him after he threw the bag. So again, that whole thing, he came there just to shoot people. And how come the mainstream media didn't show this? So now Rittenhouse makes a call, and as we got shots fired. Now this is the brother that they're talking about. Shout out to him. I'm not going to show the whole thing. I'm just going to speed up some things, but I'll gladly provide you this video. Okay, so here's Rittenhouse making a call. They say he made a 911 call. The media didn't show that. Now people are like, there he goes. His gun is down. He's running away. He's running away from the scene, and they're like, we don't know if he's running away or not, or whatever. So they're explaining it. They're about to show you. And again, this video is about to be done in a second. And again, why am I showing this? And most people have access to this very video that I have. And this isn't what the common image is. Now, this dude comes at him. That's the second dude who came 51 miles away. And now here comes the skateboard. That's his girlfriend right there saying, I told him not to do this. Gotta be a hero. And here comes the skateboard. And that's when he, boom, shoots him. And then the third guy who got shot, boom, and blasts him. That he pulled a gun out, just Brookeritz. He pulled a gun on Rittenhouse first and admitted that in testimony. And then Rittenhouse walks away. And look at what he's doing. I mean, he's more cognizant than I would have been if I was in that situation. Now, where's all this lore? Thank you for letting me share that. Where's all this lore about?
We didn't turn into CNN. Okay.
We can make jokes about it, but
no,
most people were under the impression like, yo, yeah, I'm about to cap you, motherfuckers. No. Now again, he had no reason being there. His life is forever changed from this. I do like the fact that he killed a Chester. Shout out to him. And when I see black people defending against that, I'm like, wow, so y'all going against that. He just took a maggot off the earth. That's one thing we should be happy about. But a lot of it, again, it's just emotionalism. Bottom line, we want to see anybody that we don't like, whether white or black or a so-called Uncle Tom, and people who use that term don't know what the fuck they're talking about. Shout out to the Uncle Toms out there if you really know what an Uncle Tom is. But they just want to see people they just want payback. That's all it is.
You know, my impression is that a lot of people were informed, because my thought was, after his verdict, where is the riots? Well, there were none. So usually when it is a situation where it is blacks being killed, or they feel like there's some injustice doing to the African American community, there's some major riots that usually go on, or some rioting somewhere, and there weren't any. So I think it was people are more aware of what was going on than we think.
Do you know why there isn't going to be any rioting? I'll give you one good reason why, and it holds true no matter where you are on the planet Earth.
I have any idea, but I'll let you tell it.
It's too damn cold.
It wasn't cold at that time. You see,
no. It's too cold now. You never had riots before verdict, only after a verdict.
It was not cold on the day of the verdict, and I'm like,
that's his point. Oh, I see. Well, I see what you're saying.
You know what I'm saying? So I believe people are aware, because we said that a lot of people are not in tune to what's going on in the political world, and but if we were actually operating out of the emotionalism, then I believe there would have been more would have been rioting. That's just my observation.
I agree. Let me ask this. I said this on the show last week. I'm going to say it again. Why can't people understand that this stuff? I'm going to use a fancy term, but it's really an easy term. These riots are filled with nothing but agent provocateurs. Those are people who come in by design to just set off shit, just like those people, just like Huber, who came down 51 miles away. They destroy property. The property builder wants to rebuild the property. The insurance guy comes and says, hey, we can't wait for your opening. And they're like, this is 3 times more than my damn rent. Hey, you want to insure in this area, or you want to be in this area, the small businesses can't afford this area and they have to move up. This has been going on since the 60s. That's how you devalue the areas. And we should know this script by now, especially how woke some people, I'm not saying you, but some to be. But we can, if Kyle Rittenhouse was a black man, he'd be name dropped on every rap song there has been since then. Trust me on that. And we believe this emotional clinging to Well, it's this. And you had one more thing. You had the Joy Reeds. You had the Michael Eric dumbasses, Dyson. Well, all these people not saying any facts, not saying, well, he was approached by the first. I know he actually was chased by by the first person. No, he don't. You say two words, WS. Well, white supremacists call themselves white supremacists. So if you're calling them what they call themselves, aren't you the inferior person? Now, I understand it's a name, it's a designation that we give to certain things, but we're actually falling into their mental mind trick when we refer to that as that. But that's part of the emotionalism. Create the emotion. And it was one thing I forgot to say in my preamble, and I'll end on this. If y'all want to go on, you can go on with this. Are you guys familiar with Tony Robbins?
Yeah, I am.
Mhm.
Anyone else? Yeah, the motivation dude.
Oh,
He's
okay.
he's a product of something called NLP, neuro linguistic programming, and it's basically just when you're in a heightened emotion, if you create a unique thing or what's called an anchor to your thing. It's kind of like why to some basketball players will hit themselves after they hit a big shot because they're trying to keep themselves in that heightened mental state. You create these anchors. Well, guess what? These anchors are create. Oh, let's use another one. Anybody ever have a death or they hear a song and it just immediately brings you sadness, even though it could be the happiest song? Guess what? That's an anchor that's in your head because you associate that song with something depressing that was going on in your life. So what does that have to do with emotionalism? Well, they just do it with movies. It's no different how we're watching movies, generally speaking. We're like, and if it's really riveting, we can attach scenarios to that. So now what they do is, oh, any guy with an American flag with an AK-47 that's a white supremacist. Any black guy with this, oh, he's a black militia or wannabe Panther. Stay away from them. It's these triggers that are attached to it, and I wish we could get away from it because it's been used to our destruction. That Kyle Rittenhouse thing wasn't even our business, if you want my personal opinion. Let them deal with that problem. But hey, you had people doing their virtue signaling in social media. That white supremacist little boy should go down. So that's what I was saying.
All right. We're gonna move to the next subject area. That was nice how you put that video in because again, I don't get caught up in this stuff, whatever, like that.
Salute to you for not.
Yeah, I don't. Really, I don't. Even when it's black cases and all that stuff, I'm sorry, it's not like I don't care, but I say to myself, I have to control what I can control.
You have the right to not care. Even
Yeah.
if it
So people get tied up in that, and some people, I think, again, like I said, it's false caring or whatever the case is. They faking jacks just because they want to be a part of something. Nah, they can do that on their own time. I don't get caught up in that. But anyways, we're gonna move on to this next segment about withholding sex, which may be emotionalism decision in itself right there. Like this stuff is all connected. So fires the panel. We're gonna go to you, Willie. Have you ever withheld sex as a form of punishment?
Have I ever held?
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
No, that's more of a woman's thing.
Oh.
That's more of a woman's thing. A woman, emotional. I always talk about emotion and thought. Men don't withhold sex. Very rarely, unless it's being used for a manipulative reason. And it's normally not a withhold, it's normally a prolonged wait. He normally doesn't withhold because a man's desire is to have sex. A woman emotional, a lot of women, as a matter of fact, somebody talked about it earlier, a woman posted about it earlier, she's talking about being submissive, but then she's also talking about her emotions controlling her whether she has sex or not. And the two have nothing to do with each other. It has nothing to do with being submissive.
Hold on, who has a couple things going on, like device phone?
I have no idea. I hear that clicking, clanking.
I certainly don't believe it.
They got their uncle in the background,
I'm
whatever.
on mute.
Somebody telling him to go to bed. He ain't trying to go to bed. What the hell is that?
Who's that?
I'm in the room with the cat.
Really? That's my
So
son.
I just
Okay, don't
Oh.
call him my uncle. He's not nobody's uncle. And then, so
I know. I'm just saying. So, okay, go ahead.
I think really that's more of a woman's thing. I've never done that. I've had it done to me. I've had it
So-
done to me, but I've never done it to anyone.
So I want to go back to the point you had it done to you. So if a man is withholding it, does that mean that woman should stick a fork in it because he's probably plowing somebody else? And the reason why he's withholding it?
It's an interesting thought.
If he's with
Yeah, I
somebody
don't have a
else,
response, really.
is that withholding or he's just moved on?
Well, if he haven't really moved on and she thinks it's still something there, but he's not intimate with her, she may look at it as he's withholding, but he like
Withholding
I ain't
from
withholding.
her, yeah.
I'm not. Yeah, I ain't withholding shit. I'm releasing. Just not with
Thank
you.
you. Exactly, and that's normally how men are. We're not going to withhold. Well, we may not do it with her, but we'll go find somebody else to do it with, whatever the reason. But then at the same time, they may not want to give up that person for other reasons. That's why he's still there in the picture with her, but he just doesn't want to be intimate with her. He doesn't want to be close to her in that way. And that could be for a reason, something that he's getting out of the relationship, or maybe a roof over his head. You don't know what it is that, that's making him stay and deal with whatever he's got to deal with to be there. But at the same time, as far as intimacy, he has no desire to do that with her.
So you said it happened to you, Willie.
Mm-hmm.
So how did that work out?
I ain't telling.
You got a story, Willie?
Willie,
I don't want to tell the
moment.
story. That was too close to home for that one.
Oh, okay.
But,
all right.
Good, no
I'll just put it this
story.
way. I went through that with my only marriage. So that's where that comes from.
All
I
right.
went through that
So
with my
anybody
only
else?
marriage.
The funny thing about this question is the only class of men that I know that do that are pimps. And I do mean your literal street pimps. They do it for one or two reasons.
For control.
It's not control. Believe it or not, it's not control. It's loyalty. They want to make sure that woman is going to cleave to him and no other man, no matter what happens. Because once that happens, once you gain physical control of a female, you gain mental control of a female. And a lot of people think it's the inverse. They think if you gain emotional control of a woman, you gain physical control of her. And that doesn't always work because women are known to be emotionally unstable when it comes to certain things. This is why you speak to them one day, they're feeling one way, and the next day they're feeling another day. And that's not to slight women. That's just the way you're built. You're built to be emotional, so you cling to your children, not your men, your children. This is why pimps break women physically first, then everything else follows. It's the inverse of what we're taught as men. Second, if we look at what Russell Wilson did, and I know a lot of people probably don't like him and all the situation, but I had to step back and I listened to the master teacher's breakdown of this. He went 1 year before him and Sierra had sex. Now look at their relationship. Just a little tidbit for all the little young cats out there who are thinking that you got to do things a certain way.
I think these celebrity marriages are all shams and they're used to influence pop culture. So I just mentioned that regarding Common and that one unfunny chick. I can't think of her name. Tiffany Haddish.
Tiffany Haddish.
Yeah.
Oh,
And
Yeah.
apparently, but that's because this stuff gets into the Babylon Mystery School and it gets deep. So back to the original point. Withholding sex, whether a man or woman, is basically low level emotional control of a person. You can just say you don't want to do it. I see Daphne in the chat was basically saying that sometimes a woman is just tired, and That's granted. As humans, we get tired. That goes both ways. Also, sometimes the man may not be up to doing it, but to do this to just punish people in a sense. I'm not gonna give you any. It's childish. It's childish, and if you're doing that to enact some type of control in your relationship or to express a frustration, you're already going off course. I know that in pop culture, we like to laugh at it or like, it's not that big of a deal. There's one day to do it, but we have to get to the point where we're comfortable discussing. Hey, if she's tired and you her husband, you know what? Let me respect that. Let me take this L. But when it's done all the time, or you don't get something done your way, and it's gonna be, oh, I'm not gonna give him no ass tonight or whatever, and it's like, wow, really? What's the point of this whole relationship in a sense? Yeah, I'm not reducing it strictly to sex, but come on, that's just you're in a relationship. You're gonna have problems. You're gonna have ups and downs. Why don't This is one reason why I'm always shitting on most of the relationship discussions, because it never talks about the boring. It never talks about the mundane. It's always about the highs. Well, if we live in reality, we know that there's gonna be lows. So how do we adapt to the lows? Because hey, I'd rather be in a lull or low with somebody that cares about me, that's gonna help me get out of this, than with someone who only wants to be there when things are going good. But sex, something that's primal, okay. And it's like, okay, hey, there's times when some people, when one party doesn't want to do it, but because it's going to make their partner feel good, they're going to oblige. What about that? We rarely talk about things that we can, I don't mean us, I'm talking about us as a culture in general. We rarely talk about things that can make us be more closely connected and talk about those difficult things to navigate. It's always, yeah, why don't you do this and this? Everything isn't always a one-way side of the street. So that's my thoughts on that.
All right. Well, okay, we got these ladies. They looking for it, so I'm going to give them an opportunity to speak. But the one thing I wanted to say, you said something, Sir Ty, about the highs and lows, and people don't want to talk about it. We know they don't want to talk about it because somebody just told me, stop promoting struggle love. What the hell are you talking about? Are people struggling?
Never love.
Are people struggling? If people are struggling and going through stuff, even if it's financially, emotionally, whatever, you need to talk about that stuff. So I don't know what Disney world these people living in, but that's what they said to me. Why are you promoting struggle love?
It's that social media
Struggle
world.
love.
It's that social media
Struggle
world where
love.
they follow their little dumbass influencers with their with their cropped up backgrounds and perfectly applied makeup, and all this other things, and they think, and then they watch their Real Housewives or combined with their Disney fantasies, not literally, and they think that that's what it is. As I said, hell, the richest couple in the world right now. Look at Bill Gates and his wife and what she went through. He had to have a side piece. Now, mind you, I think Bill Gates is a piece of S from what Herb said earlier about the shot, but that's a whole nother thing. Why do we act like the more financially secure you are, the less struggle you're going to have? No, that's not true at all. I'm just using finances because that's typically the number one thing that breaks up couples, but it could be anything. But just by just saying this, you're promoting struggle love by saying, hey, how do we deal with this pitfall? Nobody's going to make 100% of the shots, not even Steph Curry. But he knows what to do when he misses a shot. But for somehow, we don't have a contingency plan for the most important thing that we can do in our lives, and that's our relationship and who we choose to be with.
Well,
Makes no sense to me.
Let's bring the ladies in. Since, y'all sitting there, y'all been quiet for a while. Let me hear from y'all.
I think using sex or withholding sex as a punishment or as a way to get your way is stupid. That's just my personal thoughts. I think you have to communicate. Um, somebody said it in the comments, and that's pretty much how I've always operated. If I'm withholding sex, you can call it a wrap. It's like you can do a countdown. We about done.
Especially
That's
when a
just
woman's doing it. That's why I said
yeah.
when a woman's doing it, it's totally different
I
because
go to
that
bed
means
and fleece.
her emotions out of yeah. Your emotions. When a woman does
If
it,
I
it's
go to
her
bed and
emotions.
fleece and wrap myself up in 3 blankets, it's a wrap.
It is a wrap, especially if you used
Yeah.
to dress in something else, and you just got to
Yeah.
pay attention to details as far as
Yeah. Whereas with a guy, he won't be in it emotionally because he can still desire. He can be mad at you and still have sex with you.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Because his emotions play nothing in. It's more of what his thoughts are. Whereas the woman, if she's out of it emotionally, she's not going to do anything. She's not going to have a desire to do anything.
Now I can understand if you're upset, like if you're upset in that moment, you may not feel like having sex. I certainly understand that, but that's not the same as a
Right.
punishment. You
Right.
know, that's not the same as I don't see that the same. But if
Right. And that's why I
if
said a
you
man
are
still
methodically and deliberately withholding
plotting.
sex, like I'll show him he ain't getting none, or oh, he doesn't want to buy this for me. Well, I'm not putting out, stuff
I
like
won't give
that.
him none. Yeah.
You're playing games.
yeah, that would be like living with somebody tell you, put you out on the couch. I don't know who the hell goes for that, whatever. Like you're not sleeping in the bed or whatever. Put a blanket out for you on the couch. Hell no. But people keep putting that narrative out there, like somehow guys
To
always
me,
end
that's
out on
just
the
some
couch.
television stuff. I don't even see that as being real.
No, trust me, that happens. I've known some cats who've been in situations like that, man. When she made me sleep on the couch, I'm
it
like,
just
it's
seems
your
so
house?
crazy.
Ain't no way.
Hey, this is why they advocate for men never move in with a woman. Get your own spot, even if you have to struggle. Get your own spot, because I'll be damned if some chick walk up in here and tell me I got to sleep on the couch. Please
I can't believe how
get
many.
up out of here.
I can't believe. How many,
Listen, be like Buck. Your feet will never touch the ground, and you'll be outside, cold, shivering and shaking. I'm not here.
but why would withholding sex even come up as an option? I mean, that's why I say when I say it's low level type of manipulation. How would you think? You're like, I don't like you, whatever. I'm not gonna let them. I just don't get it. I don't know. I'm glad I don't live in that world, but
I'll answer that question with one word: feel. They feel it'll work. And we go back to that
But I
emotionalism.
think there was a time that it was taught. I do. I can remember. Yeah, because I can remember somebody I knew, somebody I went to high school with, and they had married their high school sweetheart or whatever. Anyway, by the time I saw them again, and they were divorced and everything, but and that's what the guy said. He was like, this is the crap her mother told her, and she tried it, and he stepped out. So it just created all kind of havoc. So I do think once upon a time it was, because it's not the first time I've heard that, but that was the first person that I knew personally that I saw the results of it.
We can't say that over the years we've been given poor advice from people that didn't.
I mean, and you saw it in old school movies.
Before you say the movies, what happened to your friends? Are they still together?
Huh?
Forget old school movies for a moment. What happened to your friends? Are they still together?
No. By the time, like I said, by the time I saw them again, they were divorced.
Hold on. Lakia, what are you thinking? I know you got something to say.
It's just I know, right? I did go out into thought, but no, just like Christine said that for me it would be, I'm if I'm withholding, that means I'm out the door emotionally.
Mm-hmm.
I'm no longer invested. Um, I'm thinking of how I'm getting out of this. What's my way of escape from here? Because I don't believe that. I don't even care if we're upset with each other. We're gonna lay in the same bed together. we
Mm-hmm.
going we gonna be in this bed right next to each other. You holding me or I'm holding you. Right? None of that. You on that side, I'm on that side. No,
Mm-hmm.
we
Hot
in
as
Even if
this.
it's
fish
a,
grease. I'm still pushing up against you.
We in this
even,
thing.
even if it's a king
So
size bed.
all
Even
of
if
that,
it's a king size
all
bed,
that.
I'm
You
trying
better
to
be
be
touching
tangled
a
up like
foot,
the hair in my
an
brush.
arm, a head. You better be touching something on my body, or I'm
Right.
touching you. No,
To
none
Daphne,
of that.
to Daphne in the
So
comments.
But
if I am, that means I'm out the door.
Yep.
Yeah, to Daphne in the comments, and I agree. It's like you've emotionally checked or you've checked out already. You're on the field, but you're not playing, right? To Daphne in the comments, I don't think that okay. I don't, obviously not all. I think media and propaganda has played this. How many times have we seen those crappy magazine articles? 101 ways to do with your man.
Cosmo.
Yes.
all,
Yes.
all of this
That's a good
nonsense. And
example.
people, and what's crazy is that the person, I think her name is Susan Banker. She was the publisher of Cosmo. Don't ask me why I know this because I just saw this, but she was like, most of those stories were fake that we were putting out. So you really manipulated a whole entire generation of women into doing that. But I've always said this: look at the bigger goal. There's more money when we're not coupled with each other.
Yes.
You have to have more homes. You have to buy. You're buying for two people. Well, you're buying for two people, but it's a difference when you're buying when you're living together and you're living separate. So I think we've all been played. But again, back to just that. You've seen couples make up after this. I mean, that's what it's used for. I mean, sex is therapeutic. We enjoy it, but it's one part therapeutic. It can make us like, okay, let me look at this from a different point of view at this standpoint. And we've just misused it, in my opinion.
Didn't Blue Magic, the group, said make up to break up,
break
whatever,
up.
break
Yep.
up to make up.
Makeup sex. That was
Right.
about That was a song about makeup sex.
Yeah, the stylistics.
Yeah,
Yeah.
stylistics,
Yeah,
Blue
that's right.
Magic, yeah.
And I
Song
agree with
about makeup
Emeretta.
sex.
Like she's saying, put her thing up, because I'm the same way. Like when I was married, um, I didn't, when I was still emotionally invested, I don't care. We're married, so if he wanted some, you gotta toot your tail out. You know what I mean? You toot the tail out, and I'm just saying in a nice way. You still, do what you have to do as a wife.
Mm-hmm.
And I did
Let Mister do
until,
his business.
right, and
That was
you
ugly.
yeah, and you just get what you need to help you get through that, but
Mm-hmm.
that's true, especially in marriage, you make it work, you make it
Yeah.
happen.
Now, let me
But
ask
see,
this.
nowadays that's not the case. Nowadays it's not the case. People are more quick to find a reason to get out of a marriage than they are to find a way to maintain that marriage. You
Yeah.
have people now.
That's because the divorce laws have
There's
become
very
easier.
little effort being put into maintaining a marriage these days.
Now, here's the negative side of things. There's always a negative side of things. Everybody's heard of dark psychology. You have people that know there's women and there's men. You have people that know how to target and manipulate these emotions on people or what have and they will use it for their own gain, even if it's sexual or what have you. I know I know some dudes who are the side men to some women, and these women have come to their homes late at night leaving their husbands, and he's like, "No, I gotta go to work." She's like, "Please, whatever." And I'm in my head like, "What the hell?" Because this
What?
violates all logic. You say what?
That's
But I'm
true.
just saying there's
That's
and
true.
obviously there's women who know how to do this with men. It's funny, we can accept these emotional manipulators as it relates to women, but don't recognize that there are men out here that do this. I'm too logical for this, so I can't. It's not my wheelhouse. But a lot of people do it, and it's a part of our environment. You just got to be aware of it.
I'm sorry, because I feel like I didn't get the gist of what you were saying.
Right.
You
Like,
said,
right.
Fellas, can y'all help me out? Did you understand what
Okay,
I'm saying?
I kind
Yeah.
of know what he's. I'll give you an example. I have a friend of mine who he was this young lady. She was married, supposedly happily married, and she met him, and she would leave at night and go over his house when her husband either was at work or went to sleep or whatever. It would go over and sleep with him just because there was some attraction that she had to him, but she wasn't trying to leave her husband. She wanted to. She would go back, and one day she left her ring at his house,
Wow.
at the guy's house, and that's when she finally broke it off because she realized she was getting sloppy. But she didn't want to break it off, but she broke it off only because she realized she was doing too much. But she would get up and leave from her husband and go be with him, then come back and get under the covers and lay down with her husband like nothing was wrong with it.
There's a song. Help me out, Dr. Anwar. I can't remember the name of the individual or the group. Me and who?
Mrs. Jones.
Mrs. Jones. We got a thing going on.
Herb, you sound horrible.
I know, man, but hey. Hey, if you think
You
this
sound
is,
fine. I recognize
I'm
the
just
song.
messing with
We ain't
you.
buying that
If-
record.
if you think that's bad, you ought to hear the very first time I did karaoke. I tried to do sexual healing. I got it on tape. It's terrible. It's something terrible, but it's a comedic moment for me. But this has been going on in life. We're just now realizing that pardon upon the covers are being pulled back, that this stuff is going on.
That's an affair. That doesn't
Right.
mean
Yeah.
that she or he, because the song "Me and Mrs. Jones," they're both married.
Right.
It doesn't mean that they weren't having sex with their spouses.
Right.
Right. And she was having sex with her husband. She, like I said, and she's still with her husband to this day.
That's what you may have missed. Also, I said
She's
that the
still with her
person-
husband to this day, but it was something
said
about
what?
this guy that attracted her that she was willing to jeopardize. She, like I said, she wasn't trying to leave her husband. She had no intentions of leaving her husband
Right.
whatsoever. But it was something about this guy that made her desire to be with him sexually, but she would go right back home and be with her husband.
And this
Absolutely.
this is not to diminish your point, Willie. Well, when we say this, but when we say something about, that's vague speech that we've just adapted. No, that person has an emotional, somewhat of a soul tie to that person. And ladies,
Yeah.
what I'm
Person, right?
saying,
Something about, that's what I said. There's something about him that attracted her. That was what he was saying, or the way he made her feel, or whatever thought, whatever he did. And and that's the kind of guy he was. Like I said, I knew both people, and the kind of guy he slept with a lot of women. He knew what to say to get what he wanted from women, and so it was no big deal to him. It was humorous to him because, like I said, when she left the ring over his house, he called me and told me.
Okay, can I
Oh, damn.
can I ask this?
let me finish this one point. And Dr. Anwar, circles is better than secret lovers always. Shout out to Dr. Anwar. But ladies, you have people who know how to trigger these emotional ties, whether men or women, and then they can be the controller and sometimes deliberately withhold sex with them. Whereas this person, like, no, I need this, even though I know it's wrong, what we doing is wrong. They will still basically destroy their things. This is part of this whole emotional thing. Go ahead, David. My bad.
Don't give up the next level game.
So when you get older and you talk about these people like, oh, that they had an emotional connection to this person, where are these people at? At work? Your work romance? Or is it your church
No,
romance? Or whatever
this
the case
was
is.
neither. This wasn't either. They
So how do you
actually
run
met.
into this person on a
That's what I can
regular
say. We were all
basis?
out. We used to all hang out in clubs. We were all out in the club, and we all went out. You know how I used to go out to breakfast at certain spots after the club and hang out. And like I
Yeah.
said, I knew both of them, and so we were all out at a restaurant, and they met. They met at the restaurant. We all just like people just met up at this restaurant every weekend, and that they just happened to meet that one night. And from that night when they met
Things
until
kicked
she
off.
finally, like I said, right, they kicked off that night, and he, like I said, he didn't care because he was with so many different women. He would
Brother
call me and tell
man
me,
must have some
yeah, I just
strong
took her to the
game.
house. She just came over. She'll be back over tomorrow. I mean, it was a joke to him. And so, like I said, she didn't realize it was getting that bad until she forgot and left her wedding ring.
So she
at his
didn't
house.
realize she was getting that bad until she's
Yeah, because she was going whenever he would say, come on over, or he was like, she was like, I need you. He come on over. It'd be lunchtime, it'd be nighttime, it'd be more. It was no big deal. He would call me and tell me when she came. And he
His
said she
ass
left
ain't
her
work.
ring over here. She left her ring over here, and I won't answer the phone. And she going crazy because she needed her ring. And so that's when she realized she had gotten so entrenched in this man that she was trying to get her ring, and it could have messed her up. You know what I mean? She knew that would make her husband leave because her husband, and they're still together to this day. They're still together, but when she left that ring, that's what made her really understand that she could lose her husband because she really didn't think about she was at the excitement of being with this man who made her feel certain ways and did certain things to her whenever he was doing with her, and that was just what attracted her. That's what overwhelmed her. And when she left that ring and realized that she could not get her ring, and how could she explain to her husband why she didn't have her ring on, that's when she broke it off from him. But then also he moved out of town, which also helped save that too. Because if he would have moved out of town, she probably would have ended up messing back with him again. Because that's how involved she was with him.
Go ahead, Tice. I was going
to simply say, Daphne says she was stigmatized, and we joke about that. We joke about that.
It's a real thing.
I was a second. We say stigmatized, pussy whipped, all this. We joke about that, but and it's not necessarily those literal things per se, but this stuff is real. And I like to break down the emotion because it really breaks down things what they really are. Do you just have an emotional connection with this place, person, or thing, or is it something tangible that made you develop this emotion for things? I mean, case in point, that goes in the sports realm or whatever, and that's not real life. But my point is that I understand. I do think I don't have any proof of this one. This is something I can't pull a stat out for. But I do think that Black people around the world globally do tend to be more in touch with their emotions than other groups. Again, I can't necessarily prove that. It's just more of an observation or thought. I'm willing to be wrong on this. But based off of that, I think that this emotion often leads us to making bad decisions through life. And that's why I go so hard against it, because I recognize what it is. Like, okay, well, yeah, you knew that was wrong. but you were still doing it, and you did it repeatedly. It's no different than, not to change the topic, but it's no different than a kleptomaniac who has a job and has money, but they just enjoy the rush of stealing, because they just enjoy getting away with it and getting over on somebody. Some dudes. Now, I was going to ask Wooly this question about his friend. A couple weeks ago or last week, I had asked something about or we were talking about good-looking men or this. Pause. No, HOMO. We get it. Would this man have been considered, from not necessarily from your perspective, but how the ladies responded to him, decent, average, or they find him?
Oh, he was a good-looking guy, and it's funny. I was going to say that he was a good-looking guy, and he's still a good-looking guy. He was a good friend of mine, and that was his thing. He was what you call a ladies' man. He was a good-looking guy. He knew what to say, and that was his thing. He had the gift of tongue. He could talk to a woman. He walk up and he can talk to a woman. He was saying things to her that whatever he said, that's what got her attention. And then the sex was the after. But that was his thing. He knew what to say and how to say things to get women into bed. And he did it all the time. And that's why I said he would call and tell me, because it was a big joke to him. He had it was no big deal for him. And she meant nothing to him. It was like,
what about? Go ahead. No, go ahead. Finish. I was gonna say, what about this?
It was, like I said, it was for him. Like I said, it was such a big joke to him, and that's why I said he would say, okay, I'm gonna make her come over here in the morning after her husband leaves. I'm gonna make her come over for lunch. It was like he would call me and tell me when he was gonna make her come, just to see what he could make her do, just to show what he could make her do. And it was no big. It was a game to him.
Mm-hmm.
That was just his personality. That's just how he was. That's how he's always been.
Two thoughts that I have about one about your friend is he could have a gift of tongue more than one way. More ways.
And that's what I said. It was.
So that's what I was the
words. But then, like I said, once he got her there was things he was probably doing that went along with all that. But like I said,
and then secondly, I guess, what happened to just plain old passion? We be honest, like there's some people you can actually get real passionate with more so than others. You can connect. You may connect with one person, in a relationship, as everything else good, relationship, friends, good, but sexually, y'all don't have that passion. And so it could just be, doesn't have to be, oh, she got dick down or he pussy whip, whatever. I believe passion, and it is an emotion. So sometimes people, again, can passionately be together sexually more comfortably, than you could be with the one that you love, but you don't connect that way with that person. But you connect that way with someone else.
Because she was not leaving. She had no intentions of ever leaving her husband. She had no intention, no thought. If he would have asked her, she'd have been like, no. But she'll come over. She would come anytime he would ask her. He would tell her to come. Not even ask her. Tell her to come.
Why would he ask it? Why would he ask it?
No, he didn't have. He would, but he did it as a game, because he would tell me. He said, "I'm gonna call her and tell her to come." And he would call me and tell me, "I'm gonna tell her to come in the morning when her husband leaves, and then I'm gonna send her home, and then I'm gonna have her come back after lunch." And it was like a game to him. He said, "Yeah, she over here now, and she forgot her ring, and she's been calling me all day, but I ain't answering the phone because I'm gonna see how long before I decide to give her the ring." It was all a game to him.
So how did you feel about receiving that information?
That I'm getting from that baffles me about that is the whole thing with the ring and making a game of returning that. Like, did dude not think, well, what would happen if her husband did find out it was him? Like, you don't worry about
that's not in their mindset in the sense of,
not a thought in his mind, because he knew, for one thing, that she wasn't gonna she was trying not to let her husband find out that ring was missing. And see, she didn't go home. Because she knew if she went home, the husband would see that ring wasn't on her finger. That's how big the ring was.
Again,
so when she walked in that house, and she doesn't have that ring on, first thing he gonna say is, "Where's that ring?" So she couldn't even go home, and he knew she couldn't go home. So he was
Now,
just like sitting in the house, wouldn't answer the phone, and wouldn't let her in, and just playing games with her. And then when he finally gave her the ring back, she realized that what could have happened, and that's
And
what
it
made
wasn't
her break it
worth
off. And the fact, right, and then the fact that he moved away also helped, because I'm sure she would have probably eventually ended up going back over there, but because he moved away, that really broke the tie that bound her to him.
I think when we
And
hear
like I
the
said,
term,
she's
The
still
story
that
gives me
husband today.
anxiety.
It's crazy. The
That's
things,
that's
like I
part of
said, I grew up.
emotionalism, anxiety.
Yeah,
I think when we
I
hear
grew up. I
the
grew up
term,
and with a lot of different people, around the different people, being in clubs, and I moved out when I was 16, so I saw a lot, and I spent most of my times in nightclubs and bars and stuff because I didn't go home. I was always out, so I saw and I knew a lot of people, and that was one of the people that I knew, and like I said, just watching them do the things they do. That's what, like I said, that's why I don't do things and don't say certain things. I have a lot of respect for women because of what I've seen a lot of women go through. What my mother went through, what I've seen that girl go through, and it has to be, you have to have very little emotion. Like I said, guys think women have emotion, and you have to really be heartless to do some of the things I've seen people do
there you
to other
go.
people.
There you go. Now you get it. Now you get it. I mean, not
What's
saying
that?
you did before. No, not saying you did
I'm
before,
just
but you get
okay.
it exactly. See, when we hear terms like dickmatized and pussy whip, we just think of sexual organs and all this. No, it's just an expression that this person has an emotional tie with these people. Case in point, she was so emotionally tied with the old boy that she forgot this ring, even though that she couldn't walk into the house without the ring, where you would think that's the first thing you would grab or what have you, just like you're going to grab your lady's purse and the car keys and such. But she's just so enthralled with whatever he does. And then what I'm saying, and I'm not hating on this, I recognize it for what it is, but I'm going to add this. Like I said, you have people that know how to push these buttons in people when one of their tactics is they know how to identify their marks. It's the same method.
I would agree with that.
You see, it's the same with con man. It's the same with this. I had a friend who, I should say a friend, an associate. This dude could literally, with 90% accuracy, pick out, yeah, she's a single mother. She's this. She probably hasn't been out in a while or what have you. Yeah. I'm like, damn, you knocked that off that quick she went across the street to that piece of shit ass motel. And the way she looked and she came in like that, I mean, it even blew my mind. And I tend to think I know most of this stuff, I mean, talking years ago, but it's like certain people have this way with people and they've developed. It's no different than how a woman is with her children, a father to an extent, but definitely a woman that you can tell the distinction between their cries. He just wants attention. Or, oh, this is a real cry, whatever. You got some dudes who know how to see that within women. And by the way, it's not lower class women. It's not, it's a variety that they know how to do that with. But the same thing with women who know how to target certain men. And they can just, I use the term just sexually turn out just for euphemism for that's part of that is the emotion. Part of that's the allure, the sex appeal, those type of things.
Okay.
I'm looking at the screen. This person is talking about she could have played the lost ring thing. Like I said, if you
he would have known,
ring,
like, what was the ring doing off your finger?
There ain't no way you gonna lose this ring. You know when that ring is on your finger and when you done took it off. And she took that ring off because she had to take it off. You know what I mean? There's a ring where you have to literally take it off. Ain't no losing, sliding off your finger or nothing like that. And when it's not there, you know it's not there. That's how big the ring
drain. Filled down
right.
the drain.
That's how big it was. Ain't gonna go fit down the drain. That's how big that ring was.
So,
And
fellas,
so when,
keep buying your
when she
ladies
took
these
it
big.
off,
I said,
what
fellas, keep
happened?
buying your ladies these big rings or what have you. That's a learned tradition anyway. Silly
Yeah.
ass.
I think the other, I think the other thing is the power dynamic that exists in between a couple like that. Often, what you have is when one individual that's maniacal or for lack of a better term, psychopathic, doesn't care. They exert that power to control that individual, just like you were saying, Sir Tyson, see what they can get away with before it collapses. And when it collapses, they don't care about the collateral damage, and they're just out.
Right. Oh, how about this? They're wired. It's no different how certain murderers, and it was something, I think Willie said it, Willie or Christine, but it was basically of like having no empathy or care. One of you guys said this, but that's how they're wired. Just like some people love watching blood or all this, they love watching people suffer and all this. Like I said, this shit gets real
Yeah, some
dark.
people get off on that. They get off
Right.
on that. They
And
Yeah.
don't have.
when I say, I mean, you read a book like Machiavelli, there's a reason why Machiavelli is probably the number one book that prisoners love to read because it's all about manipulation, skullduggery, all those things. But I'll say this, though. I mean, hell, guys, we have a term for it, crimes of passion. Okay? You know, who's the number one suspect when a spouse dies off the rip? Who are the cops
Amazing.
The
looking at?
spouse, the
Right.
significant other.
Amazing.
What we're talking about, I mean, I'm not saying minimize it by any means, but what we're talking about is nothing new. I just wish we talked more about the signs. If I had a daughter, I'd tell her, hey, look, you're going to have some dude that's going to be spitting that hot fire that you're like, damn, this is this, regardless of your background, we have to, first of all, recognize we can all be kind. We can all be kind, no matter what we know, whether it's from our money or our emotions. Now, the fact that we can admit that, most people won't, but the fact that we can admit that, at least we'll be more second guessing things like, wait a minute, that don't sound right, or
Well,
nah,
well, I think that's the problem that most people don't admit anything. So we all walking around here living in a world of a facade, whatever. Like people not
Mm-hmm.
having real courageous conversations and
Mm-hmm.
saying what's real, what they're hurt by, or what's bothering
Exactly.
them. It's just fake. It's not real. It's not real. It's
topic.
yeah, yeah, true,
You
true.
know, like one thing I'll share is that anything you go through in
I
life,
like that last comment, please. Sorry, Christine.
you should self reflect. When you go through certain things, and I've learned that sometimes talk about how people get conned. Um, I've always kind of been going with the flow kind of a person. Like, okay, like, yes, sure, that's fine. And I've learned, no, you have to weigh out a situation better and not always just go with the flow with somebody's, kicking or spitting at you. Even though it sounds flattering to the ears and to the flesh or whatever, to your heart or whatever it is that it's addressing. But at the end of the day, if it doesn't line up with your own principles and who you are as an individual, you can't keep giving in to those things. You have to draw the line. And you know how people, they're saying that if you don't stand for something, you fall for anything. So that's why I believe a lot of people do fall into diverse temptations. As you know, that's talked about at times, and that lures you out of your relationship, out of your marriage or whatever. Um, and that's why it is important when you are in a relationship, as I said earlier. If I'm in married, I'm definitely going to keep, or in a relationship, I'm going to keep that sexual energy here with between us, because I don't want him or myself to want to go outside the bed,
Somewhere else.
out
Exactly.
somewhere else. So
Exactly.
I don't care how upset I'm gonna be upset, but I want some just probably as much as you do. So let's just keep things here, so that we keep other people out. And so, but yeah, we should always be mindful of when we find ourselves being okay with a person or being any kind of way with a person knowing it's not for our good, it's not bringing any life, it's not life giving to your situation that you're currently in, and it's not life giving to who you are as an individual.
And social media does so much damage to so many relationships these days because that's what you have. You have these people who do all these TikToks and selfies and all this other stuff on social media, and they're getting attention from guys from all over the country, women from all over the country. It used to be you meet somebody in your hometown at the grocery store or in the club, but now with this social media, you get attention from all over the world. So of course you get what they call it catfished and all this other stuff because you got people portraying who they are, who they really aren't, just to get attention and just to get involved with people, and it's crazy what's going on out there now.
So how do we? No, no, I agree with you completely. I agree with it so much that I blame men mostly for that because most men are more thirsty in inboxes than women tend to be.
Mm-hmm.
But and they don't realize, like, when you're one of 15,000 of her "hello beautiful" messages, you're like, okay, so what are you doing to stand out? What have you? But what can we do? Well, maybe not literally us. What can we do to prepare this new generation? Hey, this life on social or TV, on social media, this isn't what your friends choose to tell you. This is not necessarily real. These are the optics that they're just putting out. What we can do to, tell them, hey, here's the real deal. Now, you're talking about, look here, about temptation and all this. Um, it's exciting to go on the wild side. That's what people do. I'm not saying it. I'm saying that's what people say. All that other stuff is boring, you know. But isn't it
And
funny
that's
how
what
now,
people want. People want excitement. People are looking
right?
for excitement and thrills. And it's funny. I was talking about the social media and the TikToks. I was watching this couple, and they were talking about how they manipulate these people who go into his girlfriend's inbox. And they did a TikTok on it. And he was talking about how they were sitting in the car. All these guys are going into into her inbox, sending her mess, trying to get with her. And he was like, "All right, make sure you send them your Cash App." And she was sending all these guys her Cash App, and they were sending her money. And he's sitting right there in the car with them, and they sitting there laughing, doing the TikTok, talking about how these guys are sending while they were doing the TikTok, sending her money in their Cash App so him and her can go shopping. Because they thinking, they trying to get with her, and she hitting them up for cash, and all she doing is showing him how much the guys are sending, and they sitting doing the
So,
TikTok.
Sir Tice,
What's up?
you said, what do we do? How do we prepare the next generation? How do we get them to know the truth? And the sad truth is, it's only going to get worse.
Yeah,
If you've read anything about this
Totally worse.
metaverse,
No,
I'll put it like this:
Totally
it's
worse.
going to be even harder to teach them because a whole nother level is coming.
what we can do, just I'll say this briefly. You are exactly right, but what we can do is I can't shape the world. I can shape the people around me, though, or I can shape my peers.
I agree with that.
I can shape them. I can tell them, and guess what? If they go wayward, they can't dare say I wasn't told this, what have you. I was told this about the drug game when I was coming up. Yeah, shout out to you if you smoke trees and all that or whatever. No shade. But hey, this is what this is gonna do. Whatever. You ain't gonna have your reflexes. You ain't gonna do this. Whatever. You don't want to be like this. And I took heed on that. A lot of the advice that they gave. I did make some wrong choices. I still got credit cards when they told me not to get them. But the point is that we can give you the information, but what do you choose to do with the information? And you're right about this metaverse. Briefly to Willie's point, I wanted to say this briefly. Get this. So there was an entertainment promoter, younger guy down here from Miami, where he sent some chick was taking those those button profile type pictures, really enhance her butt and all that, or the angle. And he literally flew her down here, and then he did a video of her. You don't look like your pictures. Oh, well, and I'm like, listen, I'm the last guy that could give a damn about Tatiana, as I refer to them. They can all walk off a cliff as far as I'm concerned. But I thought it was real weak that you flew this chick down, but because she chose
exposure.
Right, she didn't look like her pictures. Now you're gonna try to put her on blast just for your thing. You're just as much of a hoe as she wants to be in doing that. You plastic ass. I mean, and I'm like, and by the way, it got the effect that he wasn't looking for. It's like, dude, what's up? And not that I watch TikTok or any of that, that, but it came across my radar, and I'm like, this is what dudes are doing? You didn't even talk to her or have a FaceTime with her to see if she looked like her pictures or not? You just randomly flew her down, and now you look like the man because you kicking a chick out? Nah, dude, that makes you look weak as hell. But that's what we're on right now.
It's bad, and I could share a story today. And then we're gonna move on to the last segment. Then we're gonna close it out. Had a little sixth grader, cute little girl, came in my office. Now I have seventh graders, but she kind of took a liking to me. She would always be in our office, and I was like, "Yo, why are you not in class? You always in here." And I don't even really know her story, but she started coming to see me, and she was telling me about this boy she liked, and I'm like, okay, and I'm like, and I'm listening to her. I'm like, you're 11 years old. I say, do your
That's what
father?
I'm saying. You're in the sixth grade.
Do your father know about this? And she was like, no, but she was trying to tell me who this boy she liked was in the seventh grade. Yeah. He got a little reputation, a little bad, but he made the basketball team, so that might make him turn around. But the whole thing was, when we talk about the social media, like they converse all through like DM, Instagram, and all that, but they never had a conversation in school. So they've been conversing for a while. And then she's like, you know what, Mr. Glover? She said, one of my biggest dreams is one day that I hope that he just come up and approach me and say something to me like, what's up? And I'm like, really? And now I'm messing with her at this point. I'm like, once you flip the script and you say something to him, and she's like, oh no, like I would never say anything to him. But the point I'm making is it's messed up. Like that's their thought. Like they can go on for a couple weeks and weeks
for years
conversing through that, but never talk face to face. But also I had to remind her again, you're 11 years old. You shouldn't even be thinking about boys, anything. And have you had this conversation with your father? And she was like,
of course not.
Like, no. So it's big, it's real. And I don't know if we'll ever have control over it. Probably not. But
you have adults the same way.
Yeah.
Yes.
You have adults the same way. I was just telling somebody about this young lady I met, and she kept texting me. And I said, I'm not a texter. I like to talk. I always talk about it on the show. I'm a communicator. I like to talk, have conversation with a person. That's how you get to know a person. And this person refused to talk to me on the phone, wouldn't call me, wouldn't let me call them. They would only text me. And I said, this is not going to work for me. But for some reason, that was their line of communicate. That's how they felt comfortable communicating. And there's a lot of people that's what they do. They'll do the FaceTime sometimes. And somebody was telling me about somebody was FaceTiming somebody and the person was in the dark. And when they finally saw the person, it wasn't what they, so all this, all these kind of things. That's why I talk about headshots. You know, headshots.
Here we go. Here we go.
And the more,
I think
and the more you
I
see
think
that, you know, the more you see those headshots, and then you see the actual person, you start to get what I'm talking about. Because headshots is very deceiving, and you normally know when there's something going on, because that camera be so close up on their face, you know something is wrong, something is going on.
well, I
I'm
think there's
sorry,
a
go
lot
ahead.
of catfish. I think there's a lot of
Mhm.
catfishing going on in in social media and in person.
How does it?
Because everybody has their own they have their representatives at first, and then as a catfish, you're acting like
That's
you're
why I lean
somebody
back
you're
from the
not.
camera so y'all can see me.
Yeah.
Hey, let me get back to the question that Tice asked earlier: is what do we do? I'm gonna take an old axiom from an '80s animated television show for kids, G.I. Joe. Knowing is half the battle. We have to arm these kids for what they're going to encounter, as if they're 3 to 4 years older. In other words, if we're teaching second graders about things, we need to teach them as if they're in fifth grade. So when they encounter certain things, it already clicks. They say, you know what? I've been talked to about this before. I know what to look for. Because if we're expecting them to understand pitfalls at the level that they're at, we're in trouble because we're already behind the eight ball. Because technology is progressing so fast that information is transmitted at the touch of a button, that we have to be proactive as opposed to reactive. And I think often as adults, we're not really conditioning ourselves to think like that. So when these kids come to us and a certain situation happens, we're thinking, I didn't do this at your age. And that's the mindset that we have to break ourselves of. We have to actually think farther ahead, because that's how the information is moving. So that's one of the ways that we can harm
What
these kids so they can avoid
what
some of the pitfalls
pitfall would
that
you
we.
hurt hurt? What pitfall would you consider preparing a second grader for? When you say preparing them ahead, what pitfalls are what you would consider appropriate to prepare them for?
Anything that they can encounter in life. We have to remove
Like
the
what? I
brakes.
mean, I'm asking for an example. What? Give me an example of something that you would prepare a second grader for, as a you know
I, I
that you
could
would
give an
normally do a
example.
fifth grader.
I could give
Yeah,
an
I'm
example.
just I'm curious.
No, I
No,
can
I'm
give an
I'm sorry.
example because the second grader, and you don't want to think about that because they're so young. They're like 7 years
Mm-hmm.
old. But the fact is that when they get into the fourth or fifth grade, they're sending out, when they're in the tub, they're sending out nudes to
yep.
boys, whatever,
What?
and stuff like
That's,
that.
yeah,
Really?
So
that's why
you
you have to
really
do it.
don't want to be taught having that conversation with a 7 year
You
old,
need
but
to
it's
have
the
this
reality.
conversation
But
if you
it's
catch them
reality.
doing it,
Yeah.
and or if
No,
You
your
need to
child
have it
heard
before they
about it,
do it.
or
Mhm.
maybe your child heard
So
about it.
I get what Herb is saying, and thank you,
before
David,
that happens,
for
you want to do that before
giving
that
an
even
example.
becomes a thought process. So when they approach that barrier, they say no. You want to give them the confidence to be able to say no, to be able to stand up
Right,
and be
right. You
different.
do.
'Cause once you give them that confidence, they don't have the fear of doing it. That's what keeps a lot of people from doing things, is the fear of being ostracized. When you give people the ability to stand up and be free from ostracism, you enable them to be powerful beyond the comprehension of the average, pardon the use of the phrase, mere mortal. That's why a lot of people
Right.
don't like people who stand alone in quote unquote their truth, because a lot of people, they just simply aren't built to do it.
I
Now,
totally agree with you, Herb. It's all about that confidence
where
to
would
say
you
no.
implement this though? Where would you
Hey,
implement?
hold on.
Because and the reason why I'm asking this is because I do programs in the schools, and every school that I do programs in, when they tell me, like, they look at my curriculum and my program, and if there's anything sexually related or things like what you were just talking about, they want a heads up
Mm-hmm.
so they can send it to the parents, and the kids can opt out of that day of the classroom, so they don't have to participate or hear about it. And
Correct. That's
so
why it's got
that's
to be done in the homes. There's
I'm
nothing.
sorry.
It has to be stuff outside of school, like after hours, whatever, that people can go to that can promote where parents can bring them there
There's not.
without,
There's not.
yeah, but yeah,
Yeah,
and
but
and that's the thing.
And that's the
let's
problem. And that's the
Yeah,
but look
problem. And
though.
that's why,
that is it.
and
That
I'm
is
just
it.
but that's why I told you that's why I started this nonprofit, because I want to take my programs out of the schools. And if I can get the funding, then I can hold my programs in locations where because I have the funding, I can put it in a church, I can put it in a community center, I can put it, and then I can introduce the stuff that I know, like we're saying, needs to be introduced. But when I go to the schools, that's the biggest barrier I get, is that they want to kids to opt out of any sexual, and that's high schools too. When I was doing my program in the Maritime Charter School, which is a military school, they were saying, if you're going to do, when you talk about sexual awareness or anything regarding sex, you have to give us at least 2 weeks notice so we can send out permission slips, and the parents could give them the option of opting out of that day of the classroom.
Have you ever
And that
heard of
was
the
in the high school. Well,
have you
I'm
ever
sorry.
have you ever heard of the conspiracy? I know this is more than just a black issue, but have you ever heard the conspiracy to destroy black boys?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so that brother's still alive. My point is that we need to start
Iwanzika
looking
Jufo.
at absolutely salute to
Iwanzika
that brother.
Jufo. Yep.
Absolutely, yeah. We
He's
need to
one of my
take
mentors. I actually use his programs.
salute. We need to take out of the box approaches because when he was doing that in the '80s, it was considered an out of box approach. Now, I'm not I'm an educator, but I'm not a educator of children. But I do remember when I was a kid, when I was like 8 or 9 or 10 years old, one of those things. That was right around the time Scared Straight came out, and back then that was considered new, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember vividly, they're like, "Oh, so you guys like the steel, huh?" Hey, this is what happens to little 9-year-old boys that go to steal or what have you, you know. And they just took us to the local precinct, and I'm like, nope, nope, want no part of that, you know. Now I don't know what appeals to a second grader, eighth grader, or I'm sorry, eighth grade, second grader, third grader. I was gonna say that's like 8 or 9 years old, but
Mm-hmm.
the approach is basically what's impressionable for them to be liked or accepted in the group is larger than the consequences that they don't see, you know. So how do we make the consequences more like, nah, you know what, and I need to think more long term. And unfortunately, when you're a kid, hell, you're next week seems like an eternity, let alone years. Now it's funny how when we grow up, you know, the difference between 30 and 40 is not much, but when you're a kid, 8 and 10 is like a mile, you know, or a marathon, I should say. But I'm just gonna simply say we need out of the box approaches now. What you guys said about the dudes in the bathroom and that, okay, that completely is out of my mind. I had no idea that that kind of stuff was happening. Oh my God,
Yeah, all
we
day
gotta
long.
attack, you know. And a lot, I'm gonna go back to the parents. Yes, the parents can't know everything, but a lot of this gotta go back to, hey, yo, do you know that this is happening? You know, and these phones. I personally don't think that kids under 10 should be even having cell phones. But I don't have a, you know, that's just my opinion there. But obviously the traditional approaches isn't working, and shout out to you for doing your own program to add your own spin. I would just add, to even give you more suggestions, look for these younger guys who are coming up out of school, who are doing these, you know, who are on the level, who know different approaches. They're more closer to these younger kids than you and I are. I am. So they may know things and they understand things, you know. Reach out to those guys. But I do think that the answers are out there. It's just us to dig for them, in a sense.
And that's the exact reason why I tell people, like, I can't do this. I can't be no school counselor in my 60s, whatever. I can't do that. I'm gonna be removed from the thing. They gonna say,
Mm-hmm.
"Shut the hell up, old ass man."
Oh man,
Like,
exactly.
I'm still holding on a little bit of relevance right now in my 50s, but 60s is done. It's toast, whatever. Like, um, unfortunately, whatever, and that's what it is. They always gonna gravitate to the younger people,
Younger person,
uh,
right?
and they have more influence. even when you think about boys, whatever, if you have a younger guy in there, a younger male teacher, younger female teacher, those are the ones they gonna gravitate.
That's because they
But
more
then,
relate to,
yeah,
and you're
they can
closer to
relate
their
to them.
parents.
But then you have
But you know
certain
what happens with
that's
them too,
older.
Dave? And I'm sure you see this too when they do see especially a younger male teacher. The younger male teacher tends to friend them instead of being a role model to a lot of them. They'll friend them. You know what I mean? They'll become that friend, that buddy type thing, where they're not being the role model and giving them the direction that we're talking about. They're more like being a friend and a buddy and Mr. Dave, he really cool, That's my boy.
So shout
And,
out.
and the thing is, when you get older, um, it becomes a balance. Whatever, you still have to be able to
Yeah,
speak their language and still understand, and you still have, in their words, still have to have a little swag.
But
If
hold
you
on,
don't
Bobby.
have that, then you're done. If
Hold,
you still holding on to a little bit of that, you still can rope them in a little bit. So it's a couple
right.
OG guys in there, myself and my man J Rob and a few of us that they're still connected to us, but we
Right.
just
But
barely
y'all not
holding
running around being
on.
their buddies though. Y'all not, you know what I
Nah,
mean? You're
nah.
not being their buddies. They know the boundaries with you.
yeah, hold that thought for
They
a
know your
second.
boundaries.
And
They know
of the
you know what I mean?
yeah, I
Yeah.
would like to address. Anita Lynn says they need to have classes on emotional intelligence. And shout out to Anita Lynn. What I say to that is this: if she's pointed out a problem, a void, there's a solution. We can't wait for these formal boards or whatever to create a curriculum for it. That's an opportunity for someone else. So somebody like you two guys, you're educators, you bring in these college guys who have these curriculums that are this, and like, hey, I shouldn't say bring them into schools or outside of schools. Hey, we're gonna try this. Okay, we're gonna show you how. I mean, it's funny, we naturally learn what an angry person looks like, what a person looks like when there's trouble and when we need to leave. Like, oh man, he looks like he's about to shoot up the place. I'm just using a hypothetical example. These are things of emotional IQs that we can teach. So I'm like, forget the damn curriculum, or forget the formal curriculum developing this. Let's do this as an opportunity ourselves. And as far as the swag comment, I'll say this: I think that once the kid has mutual respect with that person, which is few and far between nowadays, but you don't have to. In fact, it'll make you more corny if you try to be that. I think that we need to, granted, do be in touch with them. Like me, I do relatable stories. Like they'll talk about who just died a couple or a week ago. Yo Gotti. Yo was it? No, it wasn't Yo Gotti. The
Yeah.
guy was like,
Young Dolph or
you need to,
something.
you need to cut it. Yeah. Yeah. So young Dolph died. So I'll relate with them a story back in the day of the same scenario. I won't even name who or whatever, but Mr. Cheeks from the Lost Boys, for example. You stay in these same environments, this is what's gonna happen to you. I relate with this. And they're like, oh shit, this is something new. So, so that's just my suggestion, to that. But this is a tough battle, but no one said it's going to be easy.
Not easy at
One
all.
thing, if I could just jump in, from the jump, it starts at home. And I would not take away from the reality shows showing some form of healthy relationship. And you talk about, or in the secular world, of celebrities or whatever, because some kids haven't seen it in their homes or in their families. So wherever they can see um, a healthy relationship, I think is helpful. Period. Because even just growing up, a lot of times the homes had an image of being happy and stable, and it wasn't. But the kids always knew. As much as they tried to hide it from us, we always knew the truth. You
Right.
know, and not being and no and being transparent with our kids. Um, I believe for me, I strive to be transparent. I strive to have that openness of conversation about whatever because I didn't have that openness. I didn't have that person I can go and ask questions. I didn't have anyone building up my confidence to be able to say no. And that's why I said I'm just like learning to say no is huge. And like Herb said, having the confidence to say no and stick up for yourself. Um, so that the narrative has to begin at home, but are they lost? Absolutely not. Because yeah, is it getting worse? Absolutely. As Christine said, it is getting worse. But I believe if we keep instilling, like I have a son that comes home and every time he sees something on TikTok, now the world is no longer round. It's flat. Because TikTok said it. There's really no solar system. There's only the moon and the sun and the earth. There's no Saturn or Uranus or anything now, because of TikTok. Um, so always striving to keep having those conversations and staying open. And then you have to think about what environment that child is to be in a tub taking pictures of themselves naked.
Yeah,
Maybe they got it from their mother. Maybe they got it from seeing every because a
or
lot of women
somebody was doing it to
and
them.
men, right,
Somebody was
or
taking
did
those
it
pictures.
to them.
and
An auntie, an
it don't even
uncle.
it don't
It
even
could
have it
a
don't even
cousin,
have to be them. It don't even have to be them. It could be your peers. You have to
right? Your friend. It
understand your
could be
peers is the most
anybody.
important person to a young person.
Mhm.
It's their peers.
But a lot.
Yep.
No matter if
I don't
you're
think it's just the peers.
yeah,
And then also one more big thing, we gotta teach our kids about communicating. Because as you're saying that everybody's just all Facebook and in time, with social media, DM and instant messages, whatever. We gotta tell people. We have to tell them. I'm on my kids all the time about communicate, communicate, communicate. Stop just assuming. You make sure I'm in it, that we're in alignment of what's in your mind. Make sure I'm in alignment for what you're thinking. If you're trying to include me in that, it's all about keeping that communication and teaching them you got to communicate. And also, and I believe it goes a long way if you teach our kids how to love and I mean just to respect, not even to love, but just to respect, just this across the board that should go a long way as well. It's about the respect level that we have for one another.
see,
It should
see,
just go that.
see, see, the thing is often share that there's always going to be a disconnect because you get one message from home and you get a message from school.
And you
School
get a message
is
from your
school. Yeah,
friends,
yeah.
Yeah,
School
but
is
your
where
friends.
peers.
most of their peers is at, especially during this COVID time, that they don't get a chance to hang out with their friends or people coming through, spending the night and doing all that stuff. So it's a showcase when they get to school. So you'll be amazed how if you're a parent that drop your kid off, how they change once they get into the school.
Mm.
I have parents that argue up and down. No, that's not my child. That's not my child. They don't say that. Like, listen, you crazy as hell. Like, and then it's so funny. I told this story before. I say, well, you want me to call your daughter or son down here? And they're like, yeah, call them down. And I just heard him, mod before or period before, telling somebody, excuse my language, shut the fuck up, bitch, fuck you, motherfucker, and all this stuff, whatever. Like, yo, chill with that language. Soon as they walk in and they realize that they mother or father there, hi, mommy, hi, daddy, what, 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 and this is what they do. And then parents, they be hoodwinked like, but then once they realize, damn, they so deep into this Instagram, so deep, they got 10, 12 accounts and all of that stuff. You're not even supposed to have that. Well, because everybody else had it, mommy, or daddy, all that stuff. So all that stuff, consider that.
You have active
Their
parents.
peers,
I'll base it on my childhood. You have active parents, you have passive parents, you have tiger moms or tiger fathers, what have you. Then you have everything else in between. Um, I think with all the information available, that any parent that doesn't have a clue about their kids, or as you said, that like, shut up. I know you ain't talking like that, because their parents do know, or at least I would like to think that they would know some of their people first, so that they would hear how their kids naturally interact, with people. Now, it was something that was said that I want to expound upon about children, and and just being honest with them.
And being transparent. And yeah, you got
Right.
to be transparent
When you
with them.
said, I'm glad you used that exact word, transparent, because when we admit our faults as parents, I'm not a parent, but I'm just saying it just for the sake of, when we admit our faults as parents, we now actually do, like, okay. Like, I remember my parents, they were like, on one, when you're younger, they're superheroes. Then within 3 to 4 years, it's like, I can't wait to get out of here, with them or what have you. But then, the guards start dropping. Like, one time, I'll never forget, my dad had, man, what the hell was that? Anyways, my dad was admitting, like, yeah, you were in that fight or what have you. My dad used to box or whatever, right? He's like, I noticed this, whatever. Did you see this coming? It was like, man, he was in my body or whatever. I'm like, man. And he's like, yeah, I was afraid to do that. He said, you were afraid of the engagement. He said, but that happened to me too. And I'm like, that happened to you? Because my dad, in my mind, never did nothing wrong, And then once he admitted that vulnerability, it made us even closer. It also helped me out in a sense. But sometimes, and this, I mean, listen, we're the ones who need to be 10 times better than our parents. Our parents, I mentioned this last week, we're figuring it out from depression parents who was like, boy, I just fed you. That's all I need to do with you. Whereas we're the ones who are like, okay, look, I need to have a better relationship with you and provide for you and give you the things that the world isn't going to tell you. There's things you, as an educator, David, you can't necessarily say or wouldn't be politically correct to say, but your parent can say it, like, yeah, look, and like, yeah, I know you're smarter than the rest of these kids. Don't be trying to show those kids up, whatever. Okay, just chill. You ain't got to always be first on this to answer the question. You already know the answer. If it don't affect your grade, just chill. And it's like, okay, they kind of understand the scenario. And just asking kids, I always ask my kids, how was their day? Well, ain't nobody gonna tell you, well, yeah, I almost got my ass kicked and I was embarrassed in class because of this or whatever. Oh, everything was fine. Everything is fine or whatever. I mean, and that's where I say I do commend a lot of the parents who build that relationship with that kid. Now we also got to recognize, and I'll shut up after I say this, every parent ain't you. Hell, you got, just like I said, we got dark psychology. You got some dark ass parents out here who are teaching their kids, yeah, if they do this, or whatever. So we need to equip our kids. Hey, everybody ain't gonna always play fair with you. Okay,
Well,
so
that's why I think even too. I've gone to the lens of, like, if I saw like a child out in the street acting up or cussing or doing something inappropriate, I would, where's your mother? Where's your father? And I would take, and I would go and go and talk to them and say, listen, your child was out here doing such and such, because it does take a village to raise a child. And then the other thing I say, this it's important to be transparent, because as parents, I just, my experience is that we're, as a child, I have so much pressure to be this perfect child, but the adults ain't perfect. They doing stuff and you expecting me to be perfect when you ain't even got it all together. So why are you gonna try to put something on me that you can't even, a burden that you can't even carry yourself? So
well,
that's why for me, as let me finish. So as for me, as I look at with my kids, I'm not. I look at them at the eyes of grace, and so I'm teaching them as more so now than I am striving to just discipline. I'm striving to say, listen, I understand. I've been there. Sometimes I share, sometimes I don't, if it's depending on what the situation it may be, or if it warrants it. But I let them. But I rather say, listen, I understand, but don't do it again. And this is the reason why it's beneficial, why it's not. And that's the kind of approach that I think is more healthier now, in my opinion. But then again, then it's the time when you spare the rod, you spoil the child. Because then I find some that just act like they just want to act the fool. And I'm like, let me just put this wrath on you real quick to remind you who I am.
Right.
So I'm not saying to take that away either, but what I'm saying is just still striving to teach them and not put that burden that they have to be perfect, because there's still things in life I'm still learning as an adult.
Yeah, I agree with you. I wasn't disagreeing with you. All I was going to say is though that sometimes the person that they can learn the most from. I mean, we're not perfect as adults, but I'll tell you this: what kept me away from drugs was seeing my uncles on drugs and them telling me, "Yo, you don't want to mess with this or whatever." And I'm like, man, I remember my uncle used to be a jovial, nice guy or whatever, and now he's lost his teeth and shit. What the fuck? You know, I'm just simply saying, though, it's like, hey, sometimes the reason I want you to be this is so that you don't be like me. I want you to be better, and this is one reason I can't stand a lot of modern parents. They want to be their kids' friend. I don't mean necessarily their friend, but they want to be equal with them. They don't want their kids to surpass them. No,
That's crazy.
right. They want to be equal with
Now,
them.
I mean, there's several things. A lot of what Lakia said was my approach to
Is that
raising my
hers?
kids.
That was mine.
Okay.
I had a lot of
I'm
the same
sharing it.
approach that Lakia described, because for me, instead of having that attitude toward my kids, you can't do this because I know what I was out there doing when I was your age. I think that's like the worst thing you can do. Not the worst, but it's not good. Instead, I approached them with, let me explain to you why it's not a good idea, because I remember how I felt when I made those mistakes. You know? So that's one thing. But then also, like she said, I also made sure my kids understood that this is a benevolent dictatorship.
Yeah.
If I have to lay hands on you, I will. But I made sure they felt like they had a voice.
Right.
Let me hear what you have to say. Right. Explain to me why you're doing this, or why are you acting out? What's going on? Because I think I grew up in the era of kids being seen and not heard. I didn't feel like, and I think I had great parents, but I didn't feel like I had a voice as a child. So I wanted to make sure, and as a result, as an adult, it took me a while to find my voice. So I didn't want my children having that burden. I wanted them to know how to speak up for themselves, to know how to articulate their point, not to be disrespectful. Because I mean, all my kids are adults now. They don't curse in front of me. Yes, I know they curse, but they don't curse in front of me. They still give me that respect. So, but as somebody else has said, everybody ain't you as a parent. Every child's not going to have the benefits you bring to your children. Not to say that we're perfect, because we're not. I know there's places that we make mistakes, but everybody's not going to have the same mentality, the same time, the same patience, just whatever.
So I want to chime in on that and see, and maybe that's the disconnect where it's good to give them that opportunity to be able to speak, voice their opinion, and all this stuff. But I think it also has to be a balance with time and situation to know that not everybody, not every place, you're going to have that opportunity to be able to do that. So you have a lot of kids that when they're in the school setting, they don't view teachers as someone they should respect, especially if they don't have a connection with them. It could be a teacher, they're a teacher, they may not be your teacher, but if they tell you to stop running or stop doing this, just because you don't know them, don't mean you tell them like, who is you? Shut the fuck up. I don't know you. you don't do that. And I could tell you, in cases like that, it often happened. And then even one day I was coming home, and there was some police cars set up like at the corner of my street, and maybe somebody called them on the kids. Um, and they probably was doing something, acting up, and they were just sitting there, kind of patrolling the area. And these boys was looking like, to the police officers. What are y'all? And they were Caucasian police officers, and they were like, "What are y'all looking at? Why y'all, why y'all here?" And they're like, "We just here." They were calm and collected. And these black boys, they kept pushing the issue, like, "Damn, man, what the fuck y'all keep looking at, man?" Kept saying, and I'm like, wanting to say, "Dude, like, chill, whatever."
Yeah, are
Because
you trying to get
yeah,
arrested?
this could be somewhere else that
Mm-hmm.
they could say, you know what, we didn't had it. Let's fucking handle our business and do something. But so we also have to be cautious and explain that other part to them, like, yo, mommy and daddy said you could do this, but understand the situation. They might not go by that. The rules may not apply in school like that or in certain places. So they have that message has to be fed to them too.
Hey man, you need a moderator. You need a
Yeah, I know.
you you're going down a rabbit hole. I'll admit I know a lot more about that whole programming, which is why I always say the term propaganda. And I'm wanting like, hey, what are you talking about here? What? But there's a lot of things that we teach our kids that sets them up for destruction. And when I say we, I don't mean us in particular. I mean in general. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
the police are this or whatever. Now, I'm not one of these. No, always follow all officers. Hell no, there's corrupt cops and all that stuff. What I'm simply saying is, I don't want our kids to be targets for them and expressing their frustration. And we're being lured by a lot of these groups. I won't say their names. You all know them. No, you look at them with hostility. You do this or whatever. And it's kind of like the scenario you described, Dave, where you're like, what are they just looking at or whatever? Like, hold on a second. Are y'all chill? Okay, if y'all chill, then don't worry about that. I know y'all, you don't see this kind of scene in your area, what have you, but again, I'll just go back to my point. I think I was the one who said what you remarked at, Christine, about basically we have to recognize that everyone doesn't come from the same upbringing. If we recognize this, we have to prepare for the counterpunch. That's what a lot of people don't prepare for. We have to
Mm-hmm.
prepare for, okay, hey, what if this goes left? Do we have a contingency plan at this point with our kid? And maybe they won't get it. But whenever there's an example, like, okay, hey, because the cool thing I do think with kids is once they start to get older, when I say older, I mean like older in their teens, they can now start drawing connections. And it's like, okay, maybe you're not as crazy as I thought you were as a parent, and just being overprotective because now they have experience with their friends whose parents weren't concerned with them or what have you. I remember vividly growing up where there was a guy, really smart guy, very accomplished to this day. His parents, unfortunately, were drug addicts, and they didn't give him any kind of acknowledgments or validations. And my parents and the neighbors who also had a kid, they would. He would just love to be around there. And I was able to piecemeal together, like, I'm like, hey, Mr. I don't want to say his last name. I'm like, hey, Mr. Yo, he did this in school. Whatever. He's supposed to do this. He ain't paying no bills. Out of my head, like, and then my mother was like, I come home like, what are you mad? I'm like, yo, Mr. Blank Blank, he just said this. And she was like, oh, yeah, let's have a talk or whatever. He's on this kind of bullshit or whatever. Just keep encouraging your friend or whatever. And it kind of made her feel like she had to, fill in for that in that scenario. So I'm just kind of giving that as an example. And this is why, I know it's kind of a left turn here, but this is why communicating these things are very important. Sometimes we don't hear about these concepts. or like, okay, you know what? I don't have all the answers. Maybe someone does, or maybe if I share these experiences, now I'm not saying you should be sharing these type of things with every single person, but obviously trusted individuals. But this is why I again think that communicating different ideas with people is very good, even if they're counter to our ideas. We can at least hear the contrast and compare.
Well, I like what you were saying, how you were trying to be encouraging, and your mother picked up that, oh, this child's not being encouraged at home. So when she would see the opportunity, she would do it too. That goes back to what Lakia says about it takes a village. And yeah, so sometimes even though we may not be parents, or even though it may not be our children, if we see an opportunity to step in, we really should, you know.
I don't
But
just
you know what?
go ahead.
That's more acceptable from a woman to do it. It's still more acceptable for a woman to do that with a child than for a man to do that with a child. The child, one thing, will be more receptive to a woman saying it because, again, they're used to their mother saying certain things to them. Whereas a man, especially if they don't have a man in the house, it's a double-edged sword for them. First of all, you ain't my daddy, and then they already have
So
no
do you
respect
think
for men.
with male children, because I would think with male children, like you see them doing something that they shouldn't be doing. I don't know, maybe they're kicking a bush, or at a neighbor's house, and they don't live there. And as a man, if you're saying, hey, don't do that, I would think that they're more likely to react and stop based on a man saying it than a woman.
I agree.
More,
I think
more
that if a
respectful.
child heard
They'll
a
be more
man's voice,
respectful.
especially like the authoritative
That
voice,
authority,
and
that base,
you
You
know,
have
yeah,
to.
I,
You
they
have to.
I,
they
I
You're
think
thinking of it. Go ahead, Dave, because I'm.
not.
You're thinking of it more of like you said, authoritative. But if you have no male authority in your household, you don't see that authority in the household. That coming from a man for you is a foreign language.
I
You
think. I think also.
if it, Go ahead, Dave.
No, I think also kids, they very observant. They watch how you move, and even in my neighborhood, you see some kids. The other day, I'm getting out the car. A kid walking down had, I don't know. I guess he had some system in his book bag, whatever was loud and all of that stuff. And he walking through reciting rhymes. But instantly, when he saw me, he was like, "How you doing, sir?" Um, and maybe it was just the way they see you carry it. So like, okay, he getting out with a work bag and all of that stuff. So a lot of that can lead you to opportunities to have conversations
Perception, right?
with them. But if
Right.
you just come off as a man trying to base off on certain kids, boy or girl, they're gonna be like, especially if
Exactly.
they're around their crew, they're gonna give
Hmm.
you some resistance, or whatever. So I think also the way, even like at school, because sometimes it might be kids that don't know you, and it might be some boys that know me. They're like, that chill, that's Mr. Glover, man. He cool, man.
Right.
Don't do that, man, or whatever the case is. They have to let this person know. So it depends on the way that you present it and how you come off to with
Yeah,
kids.
I think all
But
points are
they're
valid.
more often they're a lot less resistant to a woman than they are to the man, though.
I agree with
Because
you on this. I agree with you on this. You are correct with a lot of these modern boys, but I also think all points are valid. If it's somebody that they can look at, and this is why I think masculinity, yeah, I'm going here. Masculinity as a male frame is important. And yes, you may have some kid like who you think you is or whatever. If you present yourself as that, but then at the same time, it could be that person who's like, yo, there's something about this person I need to respect. Okay, I got you. I'm gonna chill, or whatever, and trust and believe. Even the boys who didn't grow up with fathers, there are men that they respect. They may not be some
I,
of the most
that
respected,
part.
right?
yeah, and
There may not
that's
be
not what
respect.
I'm saying.
No, I'm not saying
I
you are.
said
I'm
what
not
I
saying you are.
said. They are more receptive to approach by a woman. I didn't say they're not receptive to men. I said they are more receptive. They would be more receptive to a woman saying something to them when they're doing something wrong than they will to a strange man. Like that, said walk up. If they come down the street and they see you, of course they'll speak because again, they do have respect. But the thing is, they have more respect for a woman, especially if they're growing up in a single family household with a woman. They'll have more respect for a woman saying something to them about correcting their behavior than they will for a man. I'm not saying they don't listen to a man or they won't say anything, but the thing is, they're quicker to respond positive to a woman's request than they will a man.
I don't
Well,
disagree with Paul.
I'm just not in total agreement with that, to be honest. I just think that women are more assertive at doing it than men. But I think if you were to say something, it will straighten the kid out quicker.
Now,
Um,
now Lakia, let me jump in here real quick and ask you a question. Why do you believe that to be the case?
Again, as I mentioned
Why do I believe
before,
that's the case?
No, why does
Oh,
Lakia believe
yeah,
that to
her.
be the case?
Lakia.
as I mentioned before, when you hear, I believe it's if I was a kid and I heard my grandfather, like say something to me, and I'm straightening up immediately because granddad just
Right.
said something. You know what I
No,
mean? Or
you said
But
or
see,
if
you
I'm
have
now
to
a
look
man's
at
voice,
you have to
if
look
I'm
at
at church,
your,
when I was at church, so let me continue to answer the question. If I was like when I was at church and there was another deacon or come over that's ushering or whatever, and they come and say something, stop chewing that gum or whatever, you straighten up. Yeah, I
right.
mean, you just it
So
was.
But
some of the stuff is
you're
controlled
looking at it
environment.
from your generation. You're looking at it
hold,
from
hold,
your
hold
generation,
on,
what
but
I'm
you did,
I'm
and
speaking
what
as
your
a
hold on,
period,
Earth,
but I would just say
hold on, Earth. You're looking at it from your generation and how you were raised and the things you saw, and how things you responded when you were growing up. These kids don't see that. These kids aren't experiencing the things that we experienced growing up. Grandfathers being in the household, give and leading the household, and those kind of things. These kids that you see today, the majority of them don't see a grandfather. They see a grandmother.
it
They see a
doesn't matter.
grandmother.
I
They
just think
majority
that
of these
you
kids
try
don't
it.
see a grandfather.
No, it didn't matter. It's a man's voice. It was
It's a
the
totally different.
authoritativeness
It's
Yeah,
of
a
the
totally
I'm
man.
gonna have
different
to defer to
generation.
him. Look here, I'm gonna defer to him in this and that. We're not. He deals with kids on a daily basis. That's where I got
So
the
does she.
first.
She got kids.
Well, no,
But
she has
I
children,
understand what she.
but what I'm
she has
saying,
her children. There's
right?
a difference between
Right.
having
There's not a
your
Right.
difference
children
because
and
It's
I
somebody
have
else's.
all kind of kids. I've had
There's a
all kind
difference.
of kids in my
There's a
house. Like
difference.
my kids, other folks' kids, family kids. It didn't matter.
You talk
These are
about a
kids
pocket of
that you
kids.
said
You
that
talk
were
about a
I
But
small
see,
worked.
pocket of
I've
kids.
worked.
even
So no, that's not
even
exactly
with
true.
those kids though,
I've taught
Lakia, and
vacation
I'm
back
gonna say,
Bible school.
but listen, even with those kids, you bring them around when you're with them, you're introducing them to the world that you grew up in. You know what I'm saying?
And that's what
What
we're
what
supposed to
you're
do. But we're
right, but
not
no,
just
but what I'm saying,
introducing
what
them.
you're
We're
displaying
teaching
to
them
them
from
is
that
not what
generation.
they see and what they grew up in their households. That's not what they're seeing in their household. That's why I said they don't see a grandfather. They see the grandmother, they see the aunts, they might see an
And
uncle,
I
which
don't agree with
nobody
that one
really
either
pays much
because
attention
this
to.
is the generation where the grandparents are the ones raising the kids.
They're not. No, no, no. Hold on a second. There's
Grandmother,
instances. There's a lot of
Come on,
grandmother,
instances.
come on.
There's a lot of. There's more instances
grandmother,
of grandparents
not the
raising
The,
kids.
grandfather.
it could be a grandfather because grandma got a boyfriend,
Oh,
or Uncle
Okay,
Joe,
I,
That though.
that's
or
not a
Uncle Joe,
grandfather.
Uncle Tom,
You
Uncle
ad libbing out,
See,
Lakeith.
but
You ad
again,
Leroy,
libbing, man.
Uncle
again,
James,
again,
or
you're missing the
Grandpa
point.
James,
Yeah,
Grandpa.
You're
you ad libbing, man.
No, come
again, you're
on now.
missing the
No,
point.
it's the truth.
Again,
It
you're
is the
more
missing the
truth.
point
grandparents. Yes.
because even that boyfriend has no say in that grandchild's life.
But
The
I believe
grandmother,
that he
the
opened his mouth to
grandmother
say
has the
something.
say. He,
Well, let me
he
ask
may
That's
he may respect that man because he's with the grandmother. He know grandma will kick his butt, but the grandmother is the one that's controlling that household. He's not
unfortunately.
the boyfriend coming into the household and telling that grandchild what to do. He's
Let me
not
agree.
running grandma's house.
that
Let me,
Grandma is
grandchild
still
though.
running
If
that
that
house.
grandchild came into this world and he was in that home before he came, and he gonna respect that man as the
Well,
grandfather.
hold that
You
thought.
said a
Hold that thought.
boyfriend.
Hold that
That's
thought.
not. That's
That
Because
might not always
you
be the
don't know what
case.
dynamic. You don't know
we
what
can
the
add all
person
kind of
is
scenarios
introducing
in
that
there.
person
We
as.
can add all
You
kind
don't
of
know who's
decisions.
introducing him as.
We about to
The
close
mother's
this joint out.
introducing him as.
All I'm simply saying is that
We can add all these coulda, woulda, shouldas up in there.
no.
But
It's the
I
crack.
think you
the thing is,
speculated
if
too, Anita.
It's the crack
we
era.
can have a lot of
More
speculations, but the
it's the
thing
crack
is,
era.
I see it. Like I said, working with the kids that I work with, and I'm just going by what I see and how they respond. And like I said, they do respond to men because a lot of them are looking for a male role model. But because growing up in a single family household where the mother is the one who runs and controls everything, a lot of times they see themselves as being the man of the house. So they're more reluctant to respond to a man telling them what to do than they are for a woman telling them what to do. Not saying they don't listen or won't listen, but they're quicker to respond and respond in a positive manner to a woman telling them what to do because
Well,
they're used to a woman telling them what to do.
no. Then I'm gonna say this. Then what's wrong with men today that don't want to listen to what women got to say?
You're
Oh,
right.
don't want to do.
What's
Oh, don't
who?
want to listen.
That
Women
said,
What's
have.
wrong with who?
Don't give me that, because if that's the truth,
What's,
y'all would
Put
men
your
will
what was
listen
the
talking
to
points
question?
down.
men will listen more to
What
what
is the
women say
question?
now than if that was the case. So what I'm saying, all I'm trying to say in Herb, no, it's not just a female. He just had a male point of view that had no statistical background or
I
any
have
proof or evidence. It was his opinion. So I'm also now sharing my opinion, and that is, I believe any child will gravitate. How many? Okay. Here's an example for you. Let's look at the number of male coaches to female coaches.
Mm-hmm.
So you're gonna tell
you
me.
really
So
asked
now
that
let's talk
question.
about this. Okay, now you got me tapped back in. I was bored
Also,
for a minute. Here
go
I'm
ahead.
back again. So
Oh,
now that
All right,
I'm
so I
back
want to hear this
in,
about the coaches. I want to hear about the
here
coaches.
we
Come
go.
on.
So we have a
All
lot
right.
of male coaches opposed to female coaches. Why is
right.
that?
Mm-hmm.
Because why? And not just
Because
because it's a masculine sport. Even male coaches are
Yes,
dominating
it
the
is.
female teams.
Mm-hmm.
That's they, coaching those teams as well. So why?
So why?
Because we gravitate to a male leading us
No,
into
that's not
correcting
why.
us, disciplining us,
If
teaching us, and
no,
pushing us
no,
please
forward.
let me take
So
this,
don't
Willie.
tell me that
that's not
children
true.
will not
That's not
gravitate
Willie,
to
true.
a
please let
man
me take
saying
That's
this.
to him,
not
hey,
true.
Look here,
cut that
look
That's
here.
out.
not
When a
true.
child hears
I
that,
Hold on,
That's
they're
Willie.
not
going
true.
to listen.
Hold on,
That's
Willie.
not
Hold on,
true.
Willie. It's so nice.
That's
Hold
not
on,
Go
Willie.
true.
It's
ahead.
so nice.
Because
I'm
Go.
ready for
because
you
if
now. I
that
didn't
if
Hold
want
up.
to
that
stop.
Hold up,
coach,
Willie.
I didn't want to stop
why does that child listen to that coach? Why does that
because it's a
child listen to that
man.
coach?
Because it's a man, and
No, it has nothing to do with him being a
Yes,
man.
it
It
is.
don't
Yes,
That
No,
it
it
is.
has
certainly
nothing
What
to
is
do
does.
with
it
him
then?
being a
What
man.
is it then? What
Because
is
if
it
he
then?
doesn't
I
listen
said
to that coach, he does
He
not get to
doesn't get to
play.
play.
He
It's
does
about
not get to
relationship
That's
building.
participate.
to him.
So,
that's
That's
About
to
so
him
relationship
that
that
a
building.
is
coach
that is the
has.
that's
control.
not
If
true.
that coach was to quit the next day, and that child knew that coach was no longer a part of that
He
team,
wouldn't listen.
you would see how that child really responded to that coach.
And can I
If
Bingo.
go?
Because now that
that was the
child
case, then
knows
why is there such a
that coach
push for
has no
women not to
control.
coach?
Because you guys
What?
control the marketing and of these
No,
and of
no,
these. One second,
no. Why
no.
wouldn't he put us as coaches then? If we're the so influential one
I
and
said,
the
one second, one second.
disciplinarian,
You're talking.
then why are
You're
we
talking.
not out there so ready? Why aren't y'all so
You're
ready to
talking
push
my
us
world.
out
Because
there
you don't know
to,
the position.
coach you?
Because it's
You're
not
That's
it's
not
not
talking
a
true.
my
it's
And
world.
then
not
let's
You're
go to
talking
the
my
So
world.
everybody doesn't know the
do
let
we
me
position.
go
gotta
to the
have a
there's
continuation?
there's
I'll be quiet.
companies where they say women that they said there's more men CEO workers than there are female CEO workers. I
Right.
mean CEOs. Why? Because they don't want to put females. But if we're so influential and we're so much of leaders
We're in a
Now
and
wild.
you're
we're so
talking
much
about
of people
stir
getting things in
situations. You're
order,
talking
then
Stop.
about
why then are
Stop.
you not men
Hold on for a
pushing
second.
women to be more
The
CEOs?
reason
It
why
goes
is
across the
because
board.
your group.
Why
But
would
you
a
want to
man
put us
push a
at, oh,
woman
you're
to
good at
be a
being a parent
CEO?
and disciplined,
Why
but you're
would a
not
man
good
push a
enough to
woman
run
to
a
be a
company.
CEO? A
So
man is not going to
hogwash,
put a
Okay,
woman
I'll
to
bring it
be
back. I'll bring
your
it back.
theoretic
because it's still a
conversational
man's
about
I'll bring
world.
it back.
women and men.
It's
I'll bring it
still
back.
a man's world.
Because
It's
I'll bring
still
it
a
back.
man's world.
I'll bring it back. It's very simple. Okay, back. The reason about grandparents.
Hogwash.
No. It's not hogwash. I haven't even said
It is.
anything.
It is.
Back. Okay, so,
I heard
so
your thoughts.
hogwash since the crack era. Since the crack era, more grandparents are raising kids. Now, are
Grandparents.
all these grandparents, as you said, raising kids? No, but more in history are. So yes, you're
Grandmothers.
correct there. Where you
Thank
are
you.
completely
Correct.
incorrect
Where
on
am I completely
is,
correct?
hey,
Grandmothers.
let me finish what I'm saying. I got to state it like this to point out exactly where you're incorrect on. Where you're incorrect on is number one, the reason why the market propaganda caters to women is because you guys spend the most, okay? And we have data and statistics to prove that. And as long as we have as long as we have a consumer class, we will, they will cater to that class. Now, let's talk about this coaching thing, something that I've done for over 20 years, that I have experience on in this, both athletically and career-wise.
I have coached too.
Okay, that's
Look here, you coach one damn game. Shut the hell up!
Wait a minute, I want to hear what
So don't be telling me what I have not done.
They're gonna always interrupt you when you try to make a point. I didn't interrupt, but then I was like, okay, let someone else talk.
He said something I had
Where Willie is absolutely positively correct on it, and made me think, and I'm like, damn, he's right about this. When I was coaching in the 90s, when I was coaching in the 90s and early 2000s, no problems. As things start to progress more into the 2010s, why my son on the bench?
Exactly. It's always a woman. It's always a woman that steps to the plate.
Wait a minute.
Shows up late to practice. Your son shows up late to practice, and I'm trying to, I paid the whatever. And I'm like, damn.
That has nothing to do with what we're talking about.
I'm trying to teach this young man.
There's nothing to do with what we're talking about. Fathers do too. Who started the fights in all these different? Because I am. Who started all these fights on these different teams out here in these football fields and basketball courts and hockey fields?
Right back to what I said.
You ad libbing.
I have a question though. So you're saying that once, okay, yeah, they're listening. They're listening while you're coaching, but if you're no longer coached, they're not listening. But I see David post on a regular basis. Oh, it's so good to see these kids come back after I've mentored them and they're doing well. Da 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 da. So they were listening to you, David.
They were.
I built relationships with them.
I have to agree with Lakia just on the point that I do think that children respond well to that male voice when that male voice is trying to give them instruction.
You don't hear what Willie agreed with me on when I had the kid benched. When I had the kid benched, it was his mother that came and made it more difficult for me to coach him to whereas
okay. If that mother weren't around, would that child be listening to you?
You said it's a mother. Of course he was, but she pulled him off the team or what have you, and he ended up in jail because I made a follow this kid.
Okay, so my point is that child is willing to listen to you. So if there's no, I'm saying if a child is out and they're unsupervised and they're doing something that they shouldn't be doing,
the child
that they are more likely to positively respond to a male adult.
That's all I'm saying.
Correction.
You know what it is sometimes?
A male adult stranger than a female adult stranger.
You know what it is sometimes? You know what it is?
What is it?
What's that, sir?
This. Oh shoot! Are you kidding me?
Yes, we are absolutely kidding. It's the universe. It's so good.
Thank you. Because it was going to make no sense.
Chaos, gentlemen. Agents of chaos.
No, listen, let me share this thought.
I'm sorry, hold on. Okay, this harkens back to that whole entire episode with Marshawn Lynch and that child's mother. There's a reason why Marshawn said, let me speak to a man. Because women don't grasp it. You guys are basing it on your perspective and not the actual lived experience. The generation that these kids are they're washed in.
Emotionalism.
But okay, now what's the statistics of how many fights that broke out on these football fields and stuff with these parents were men? They weren't women. So
Yeah,
cut
but
the
Emotion.
emotion. Men are
how do,
just
how
as
does how
emotional as
does
women. Y'all just
how does a
cheering and
man
Emotion.
feeling
control the
differently.
individual
Do not
actions
come
of
off
a
that
child?
way. Don't no. This is what we're going to go back to. Is what the subject of the matter is which is if a man says something to a child, will a child listen? Absolutely. That is what has been the beginning foundation of
Not
of
always.
of time. Is that
And,
men
okay,
is the
so
head,
so
then it's the woman. When a child hears a man's voice, that's why when it comes to coaching or teaching or mentoring or whatever it may be, if you come into a room and a teacher that's a male shows some type of authority, let me show
No.
you how to talk to you. Say your language says authority.
No.
They
Listen, no,
listen.
listen,
No.
listen, listen,
Don't
listen,
hold
tell
listen,
on,
me.
listen,
Willie, Willie,
That's
listen,
not the
Willie,
listen.
hold
truth.
on, Willie.
Let
All
me
you have to
say
do is
this.
They
ask me
will.
this:
Not
what
all of them.
Let,
It
percentage?
just
let Dave
depends.
say that. I want to hear
Hold on,
Dave
Willie.
because I will. Because
Hold on,
I'm sitting
Willie.
here making up
What
stuff.
percentage of teachers
I'm making
are
up what?
male in this country?
What?
What?
What percentage of teachers are male in this country?
There's probably more teeth. There's
10%.
more probably. It's like I don't you know.
I
There's
know
I'm
more.
there's
still just throwing
fewer
out quotes
at,
numbers.
at the
10%.
K through
15%.
12. It's much fewer male teachers than female
So,
teachers.
Yeah,
which
very much.
goes
It's
to
like
the
10%.
point that we're making is these kids do not encounter male authority until they get beyond the high school. And
So
this is why
so
they run
my
into so
point
many
again
issues
is
with
that's why
law
it's
enforcement
more
because that's
shocking
the
to
first time
them.
that they encounter male authority and they're resistant to it. This is what we're telling you. It's not what we feel, it's what the statistics bear out. But you guys don't see it because you're on the other side of the coin and because you've been conditioned to listen to male authority. These kids have not. That's why they don't.
Okay, so they weren't conditioned. They're not being conditioned as well.
Listen,
They have no men around them to
look,
condition them too.
So y'all not
listen,
around
listen,
kids.
listen,
Are y'all
listen.
not
What
around
listen,
children?
listen. What Herb is saying is
This world is not just full of women.
when you think about the elementary level,
Mhm.
you need more male teachers to be like third grade, fourth grade, fifth grade teachers.
Yeah,
And
like
that's
elementary.
not always the case. So what happens is you
That's in
have
his book.
female teachers in that role. So the boys are able to kind of manipulate that situation. Then when you may get to middle school, you may have more males working in middle school. So, but
This is
because they're
the book
used to
I
being a
was.
certain way in elementary, shit, no, it'd be a lot of bumping heads with kids with male authority trying to say, do this and do that. Cause I have male teachers like, yo, Glove, you got to get this kid out my class because I'm about to do something to him. Remove this kid out my class. You'll be surprised about the little conflicts that I have to deal with. Then
Why
when you
is it?
because some guys say I don't do middle school, I don't do
Okay.
elementary, I only work with
Okay.
high school kids, high school
High
level
school
kids,
kids,
whatever.
right?
I
And
thought
So
middle
if
school
they
But you
haven't
just
had it from
but
from
home,
K through
home.
8, no, I'm asking a question. I'm not trying to
that's it.
throw out any type of.
Okay.
So if they haven't had that male influence from K through 8, what makes them suddenly receptive to it starting at the ninth grade?
Good
Who
point.
says they
They're
are?
not.
they're
Who
not
said they
always.
are?
David
No,
was
no, no.
just saying
Yeah.
that a lot of male teachers are like,
Yeah.
I don't even want to teach
Yeah, because
if
they don't
it's
want to. They
under
don't
the
want to deal with the
high
younger.
school
They said
age.
put
But
that on the girls.
you
Put
do
that on
have
them.
some that go in that level, and usually those are the kids that respond to it, but it's a small percentage.
But no, let me say
Right.
this, David. You said something. This is what you said. You said that the teacher came and said to you, Glover, come get this child, or I'm gonna get some. Did that child listen to you when you came?
Do they listen to me?
Did they
Remember,
listen to you to be
remember.
removed out of
He
that?
has
No,
the
no.
power.
Yes or
Hold on,
no?
listen.
Did you remove that child? Did
It
they
ain't no
listen to
simple
you?
yes and no. I'm not no yes and no type of person. I'm gonna explain
Oh,
to you. I have a different type of relationship. So I'm not yelling at
With a
them.
lot of
Remember,
kids,
I'm the
right?
counselor. I'm a counselor.
but you're a
So
man. That's the whole
that
point.
doesn't
No,
no,
that
it
has nothing to
doesn't.
do
Has
with
the
it.
Yeah,
That's
power.
the
Because you're a
position.
man,
It's
yeah.
the
and that child
position.
listened to you
No.
to come out of that
No,
classroom.
I could tell you many
Because of
times
the
this. I
authority
could
that
tell
he
you
has
many
as his
times. I
position.
say, why do you listen to me compared to them? They say, because you don't yell like that, whatever. You're different. Like you talk to me in a calming thing. I hear my
Right.
mother,
That's
father
right.
yelling all the time. you don't yell.
all the time.
They always yelling, cussing, and all that stuff to teach you.
Really? Take that.
Starting from the home, but I
Yeah.
said this earlier, but you scoffed at it.
I keep telling y'all these conversations are so deep, you can't sweep them under the rug.
But then I would like to hear what Willie has to say about this book here, but I'll just say this briefly. I find it amazing how you have four men explaining their experiences of dealing with this. Also, we were once children and we have the contrast and compare experience, and we observe what also goes on in reality, and we know what the statistics are.
You didn't have
I don't
any
know.
of
One second. I don't know these guys, but isn't it funny how my experience growing up in a completely different area that they are mirrors damn near exactly what they've gone through, to whereas we can share stories and banter in this. All I'll say this simply, and then I'll pass the mic to Willie, is that listen, yes, some children will respond to men, but you guys think it's just male authority, male voice, and all this.
No, that don't
It's
mean
not just that. Sometimes that male authority, male voice will make those kids want to like, oh, I'm gonna challenge this motherfucker.
Because remember this. Some of them kids had male authority yelling and all that. These the same male dude that was yelling, beating the shit out their mother or
Right.
whatever the case is, so they don't respond to that. Like, okay, what that mean? Whatever. This same guy was doing that, or my father did this to my mother, or whatever the case is.
Exactly.
Now, using back, no.
Exactly.
I'll finish my point. I'll finish my last point or whatever, and thank you. And by the way, we didn't arrange no scripts in this. Isn't it funny how we have these same experiences? Now, with
And we said,
with this whole male authority and women can do this or this, it's because of this. First of all, like I said, with my experience, something flipped, and I can tell you what flipped. It was basically the crack generation were now becoming the parents of today. That's what's really happening, and their logic is different than the previous generation. Now, well, you can't. My kids told me you were cursing, and I'm like, did I curse? Oh, damn. Oh, so these kids went and snitched on me about saying, damn. If you heard how my coaches used to talk to me, shit. Damn was like hello. But forget all that for a moment. All I'm just simply saying is that we're dealing with a different breed now. We recognize that. Their mammies don't recognize that, and I use
really?
the word
Right.
mammy.
Really, dude?
I
Mammies?
sure said that because those are the irrational ones who I wish would go the fuck away. And all
Really?
the same with who they procreated with. I showed.
So you're gonna say to me
I'm not saying
that no fathers came to you or no fathers had issues with their.
I've asked kids that Marshawn Lynch story that he said about. You may not be familiar with it, but it was a football player.
I know who Marshawn Lynch is.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, I've had that very same scenario. He ain't here. Now you dealing with me. Okay, hold on with this masculine shit. You know what? Go talk to her. I'm done. Hey, you're off the team. Sorry, it ain't working out because if it steps up, I know what spot you go at. I'm gonna get your ass whooped. Oh, okay. So now you're putting me on the defensive here. Okay, got that. Make sure you see me or whatever. You see me. I won't get into what that means or whatever. Of course.
But real quick.
Yeah, my
But
point,
real
my
quick.
point is that no. All people will go to the path of least resistance. So if a man doesn't want to work in a school dealing with children, it's because he doesn't want to deal with all the bullshit.
Nobody needs to
He's
mute
always
their
wrong.
stuff.
A man, generally speaking, does not want to go through the path of least resist. I'm sorry, of the most resistance of something that he can prevent, even if this is if it's his passion of working with children. So he works in the elementary school. I'm sorry, the middle school, because that's when they're really getting wild. And they accuse him of. I can tell you all types of things. My friends have told me these.
So,
but go ahead.
I'm not disputing any of you, but I will say this. Yeah, this all like butts up against every instinct and experience that I have to compare it to. So it's foreign to me. I'm not gonna lie. It's foreign to me. The idea that these things that you all are describing is foreign to me.
And that could be true.
Yeah.
That
So
may be true.
I'm
Yeah.
Right. So just like he said, he had experiences. You guys all had experiences as men. We've had experience as women, and we never said just male children. We said children. So you can't exclude the females that that's experiencing things as well. So I'm not and like I said, I'm not taking away from what you've experienced, but I also believe there, from my experiences, we move faster to when a man says to move. And it's not, I don't think it's just because we've been learned behaviors, because we're being taught to be submissive to men. No, it's like the father's always been the role model or the head of the home, and you just or a male is supposed to be that. I would say that a child would, in my opinion.
You're clearly a Gen X. I
yeah,
Okay,
and
look
so
here.
like Lakia is saying,
I'm a
and
generation. How old do you think I am?
I'm trying to wrap my mind around what you guys are saying, that the difference is that the children that you are describing have not had males around either to listen to or that gave them something to respect, because that was quite an eye-opener. Like, if this male authoritarian in the household was beating the hell out of your mother, you hearing a man give you instructions would probably be a trigger instead of
absolutely.
So I mean that's what I'm saying. This is I'm wrapping my mind around it as you all are talking about it, because it's quite foreign to me. And it's like Lakia said, it's not about submission. It's not about, oh, well, I was taught to be so submissive to men or whatever. It's that I had strong male role models in my family, especially my
But you
own
don't see
father.
that. They don't see that
To
now.
me, it's like,
It's
yeah, of
totally
course,
different.
Mr. Kane next door said, don't walk on those people's grass like that. I'm like, oh, let me stop.
Well,
Right,
even go.
exactly.
I was about
And
to
see,
crack.
you keep what you keep looking at, Christine. Like you said, you're looking at when you grew up. When you grew up, and you look around the neighborhoods now, you don't see those same fatherly, manly role models in the community no more. You see women. You see women, and some of the women are acting worse than some of the men.
No.
And fighting and loudness and behavior and character and
Like, I
then
ain't
you
gonna
see
lie,
the
this gives
man,
me a headache.
and you see the man in the household. You see a man in the household. That young kid see the man in the household, but the mother, not so much him beating the mother, but you see the mother beating him, or the mother controlling him, or he laying around the house playing video games and doing stuff with the kids, and the mother out struggling and trying to do everything. So again, that child is looking for the mother, seeing the mother as the role model, as the head of the household, as the leader. So when a man says something to him, because that man that he does see has no role, he's not receptive to a man telling him what to do.
If we're
But he'll
talking
be
about,
more receptive to a woman. He'll be more
And I guess
receptive to a
maybe
woman
this is what
because
Lakia
that's what
is
he
seeing,
sees.
because in my mind, also, even in those situations, they're not going to be receptive to a woman or a man. So I'm thinking maybe
They
they'd be more
will be more
receptive to a
receptive
man.
towards a woman because that's what they see. They see the woman as the leader in the household that he's in. So he'll be more receptive to a woman telling him what to do versus a man, especially if he sees a man in the household being controlled by the mother.
And if you think about
Being
it,
run by the mother.
if you're thinking about it, with some of these boys, whatever, they may look at someone, whatever, like in a school setting, someone that's nurturing, like their mother or whatever the case. Not in all cases, and that's who they gravitate to. To be honest, the ones
Gravitate
that
towards
come
those
back,
teachers,
yeah,
right?
the ones that come back to see me are typically females because they looked at me as a father figure, an uncle figure, or whatever the case is. So
Yep.
they're the ones that always come
Yep.
back and say, Mr. Glover said this, Mr. Glover, I related to him. The guys, if they came back, they may come back probably to see a female teacher, whatever. And if they see me, what's
Mm.
going on, Mr. Glover, or whatever the case is, or they come back for like their coaches, whatever, that they had a relationship with. Remember, the key thing
Right.
is
With
a relationship, a connection with.
right.
And not all
And it
people
wasn't just a
connect.
coaching. It
Yeah,
wasn't just a
yeah.
coaching situation.
It's about the relationship because remember, in schools,
Relationship.
usually teachers and all that, they're teachers first, and then they coach
Right.
Right.
extracurricular. So
Oh,
they had these people in classrooms, unless you have these bootleg schools that have somebody from here and there come in and coach whatever. But typically, if it's
Mm-hmm.
ran right, it's supposed to
It
be
had to be
someone from the
on the
school
school.
or
that
someone that has a background in this and understand it. I'll just say this briefly. It's funny how I heard some people got triggered when I talked about the crack era, or I said mammy of this. But if you look
Yeah.
at when the crack era was, mid to late 80s, if you were born in the mid to late 80s, if you were born in 1985 at the height of the crack era, that would make you 35 years old now. More than likely, you're the one that has children in the schools right now. You came up with a different form of respect. You were raised by your grandparents and such, and it was something else that I was just gonna say. Oh, we talk about, well, you hear the male voice and all this. Well, those kids who were born in the late 90s, 2000s, 2010s, they've been fed a steady diet of trap boy rapper with his pants sagged off of his ass as the man to look at. You're not going to see a counselor. You're not going to see a computer programmer. You're not going to see a machine operator. Yo, that dude getting it. He getting that money or whatever. You ain't going to see that being promoted just like you see, oh, she's a career woman. I don't want to make this a comparison directly to women. I'm just using a contrast here, but she's this. So the boys, this is what they look at. This is why most of them idolize NBA players and football players, even though one of those sports has the shortest career span, to whereas you have loser guys in their late 20s, no skills, once their careers are done, but they're looking at them. Rappers, another short term career, but they're the ones that's promoted and glorified. And when I talk about this propaganda being put at us, we just look at it like, oh, he's talking that old conspiracy, black power bullshit or whatever. No, I'm saying this is how they create your archetypes, not recognizing that it's these men who still care to come. I got to give it to you, teachers. Shout out to you, counselors, too. I give y'all a shit ton of credit. You come into a place where you know you're going to be dogged, you're going to not be appreciated, but you still do it because you think you can make a difference. Most men are hardwired to, like, you know what? F this. I got my own family to look after. Okay, I'll deal with the group that I can somewhat control that will respect me versus dealing with this disrespect from these kids and from the administration that says, well, you just have to shut up and take it. You can't do this or what have you. So that's why we are where we are. Again, how do we change it? Well, we got to stop acting like what the brothers are saying here doesn't exist. Like I said, we were once children before. We have gone through this, and we do have the perspective of, damn, that didn't work. Or my parents was on some bullshit here. Here they were spot on. We have this. I'm not saying we have all the answers, whatever. I'm just using that. And it should be stopped at. But I'll end on this. But because it doesn't fit the narrative, it doesn't sell products or make you an ultra consumer, it's not going to be promoted. Let's recognize that and let us be our own promoters versus, well, Will and Jada did this and they allowed Caden and whatever the fuck the other kid's name is or whatever. That's like, damn, this is our templates now? But hey, I'm just making this shit up.
Woo wee!
And we're just making it up as well. No, I think we all have, as Christine said, this different perspectives, different experiences. And that's what makes you men and makes us women, but it doesn't say, I just think there's a level on both sides that there's truth on both sides, but it's just interesting how, and to be honest, I was thinking, I had a chance when I calmed down, I woke up, got hyped up, then I calmed down, where when I think about even there was times when I was disciplining the kids, they would listen to me more so than they did listen to their dad. Like if I said something, he'll say something and they'll just sit there. But when I came in, I would say something, everybody start moving. So there's a level of truth in that, just to
Mm-hmm.
be transparent.
And sometimes that has to
Mm-hmm.
deal with. Sometimes that has to deal with consistency, whatever. Too with even in a school setting, you may have people that come to work on a regular basis. You know that you only could get away with certain things, or they pretty much stern on the way they handle things. And then if you have somebody that's half ass and doing everything, kids realize you don't even come to work, dude, or whatever the case is. So all these different things play into a factor, whether you believe it or not. And I'm one, as the counselor, I hear these conversations and I say, why you don't like this? Come on now, Mr. Glover. You know they don't even come to work or whatever the case is. So they trying to tell us to do this, but they don't even come to work. Or the kids that tell like we about to try to get this teacher fired or whatever. I hear all of these different conversations. You know why? Because I'm not the one that's yelling at them or disciplining them. So this is my role to just be the buffer to hear everything. So I bring the different things to this platform to talk about some of the conversations. I don't have a dog in a fight, but I know that I get this information. It comes to me. And Willie, promote that book. What is it about, man? Talk to us. We about to
No,
get ready to get
no,
the hell out
actually,
of here.
this is not the book that I was looking for. But what Surtees was talking about with Jawaza Kunjufu, this is one of the books that he wrote. I don't know if you guys ever heard of Jawaza Kunjufu, but he is actually the person where I talk about right brain learning and using things like music and working with hands and artwork and different things like that, videos and things like that in the classroom to work with young men once they get past third and fourth grade. And because it works better with them because they fall behind girls, especially in the reading and writing aspects of school. And so a lot of the stuff, and as a matter of fact, he and I are good friends, and we've exchanged books whenever he comes to Buffalo, wherever we meet up. But that's what his books talk about are the ways to address the learning. And he talks about how in the schools where most boys don't see a male teacher. They may see a male counselor, they'll see a security guard, or they may see a janitor, but they don't see a male teacher until they maybe get to high school. That's where they normally see them because most men don't want to be in those earlier grades with the kids. And so that's why the kids mostly see the female teachers, and most of those teachers are white teachers, white
Mm-hmm.
female teachers who don't
Yep.
understand them and are actually afraid of a lot of them, especially in the
Yeah,
urban communities.
and even that's the
So
thing.
that's
That's the thing with counseling, whatever. A lot of times it's
mhm.
white female counselors. And I remember when I was in my counseling program, this white guy said, "Man, he said it's only a matter of time, David, whatever." Before I had a counselor position, he said, "You're a black male, whatever. You about to paint your ticket. Every school's gonna
Mhm.
want you because you're a rarity,
Want you.
whatever."
Yeah.
And and as soon as I start interviewing, I had people coming up. Hey, um, like I had options but Baltimore had pursued me more. They kept emailing me for me to come down there, but it gets to that point. It's like Willie said that
They
they
don't
don't
see
see
it.
that. So, in a lot of guys,
And
that
that's
is
what
their
you're
things, will
looking
stir them
for.
away from
Yeah.
education because they say, I
Mm-hmm.
don't want to deal with the nonsense, whatever. I'm not about to deal
Mm-hmm.
with that. I'd rather go work at a job 9 to 5, get out of there and do my job that I don't have to deal with kids, administration, the
Or
politics,
with women.
parents.
Or they
Yeah.
don't want to deal with a lot of women either. Because you think about it, they that one male black teacher in that school, or that one male teacher in that school, or two male teachers in school. But what are they dealing with? They're dealing with women and different attitudes all day. And so again, that's another thing that they don't want to deal with. So again, they go into the high school where they have a little more autonomy because it's a little more freedom for them to do some of the things that they can do. What they are waving for?
Because let me ask a question.
Yes.
With these women field teachers in these elementary classes, when the child was acting up, who did they call? And who was usually the disciplinarian they were calling to
Which one
come
would
to
they
the
call?
class to get the child to get the kid? Most schools I ran by have been ran by male principals. And I remember
No, not these days.
and then let's
Not
remember
these
this.
days.
Remember there was the suspension room. Those were usually male like
Not these
suspension
days.
guys in there,
You're
teachers or
basically
like. So you're telling me that that's
You
not the
talking about
case?
things that were. No,
yeah.
No,
no.
so it's not like that
It,
now. So now they're
it,
full of female. No, because there's probably a lot of girls acting out now. Because back in the
yeah,
day,
yeah. A
girls are
lot of
more
female, a lot of
fighting and
female.
stuff
Even
now.
Niagara Falls High School. Niagara Falls
But
High
before
School is head by
this,
a female.
but
Niagara
before
Falls
this,
High School is male. They have a
we
male
know that Cynthia
superintendent.
is, but the superintendent is male, and there. Remember, she's
Right,
not
and
the
that's why.
only
But what does he? What does he
principal.
control?
There's
He
other
doesn't control
principals.
anything in the.
Hold on.
Zimmerman is a principal, and he's a male.
Right. In City of Buffalo, the majority of the principals and administrators and the teachers are women in the City of Buffalo schools. In the
What
No, yeah,
I
but
Niagara
I'm just
Falls
saying, like
school,
back what I remember is that there were the
right.
disciplinarians that would
In
come and
your
get the
time,
students
as I
out of the
told you, our
class.
generation,
Um,
your generation, and the generation that they have today are two different generations. And you can't keep applying your generation and seeing grandfathers telling and these kind of things. These kids
It,
don't see that now. They
it
don't
used
see
to be.
those. They don't get those experiences.
It
And so
used to
when
be
you
a
apply
luxury.
things, you're saying like when I was a kid, my grandfather would say this, and but you go to most households now, you don't see a grandfather in the picture. You don't see a like you said,
but
a
this is what
boyfriend.
but I'm
Grandfather
gonna
and a
go back
boyfriend are two
to.
different.
Yes, we do see it because guess what? I'm seeing four men out here in this on this panel that work with children. So
don't know.
if we don't, oh, but we don't see it. We
Grandfather?
don't see it anywhere.
I
We
said
don't see it. But
grandfather.
there's four men on this
You
panel
said
I said
that
grandfather.
work with
You said
grandfather.
children. I know, but
grandfather.
I'm saying period. I said you said back in your you said back in your day you would see the men in there. Back in your day you saw men in there. No, you see more
Right.
women now,
And
and
that's
there's
what you
no
kept
male
saying.
influences
That's what
like that. I'm seeing. You said
no,
there was
that's
four men
not
on
what
this
I
panel.
said. I did not
David is a
say there was no
counselor.
male
David said
influences.
people had
I
people
said they
called on him to
don't
remove
see.
kids. You mentor
Right.
kids. You're in there, so you do see it. I see you. You're in there mentoring kids. He's down
Listen,
here.
And how many
Sir
schools
Tice
are in?
is
let me
down here working.
let me say.
Herb is over there working with the Lions Club. He's a male.
Let me
So
say
but I'm
this.
not seeing males working in this.
Let,
Okay,
let me
let me
say
go
this.
past these four males. I'm
And
not
how
done.
many? How many do you
Let me
see?
finish. Let me jump into
You
the
see
more males
five
that I see in
men.
it.
You
I
see one,
see
two, three,
Ezra
four
in the high
men
school. I see
As we
doing
just
what?
got into the high
Doing
school,
what?
so
I see a lot.
stop it.
Doesn't matter.
Doing
He's
what?
in there.
Yeah,
Exactly.
he
I
got
Doing what?
quiet.
see Pastor
Doing what?
Dobbs in there. He was
Thank
on the
you.
board. I saw who else was
Doing
out
What
there
do
what?
you
working the
name it?
school.
Listen,
I'm
Lakia.
going to go down the line.
Listen.
You naming
Listen.
people in
Let me
positions.
I
We're
say
not
see.
talking about
I
positions.
see.
We're talking about
We just said
positions.
period.
We're
We
not
just
talking
said
about
period.
role
I,
Disciplining
I,
models.
children,
I'm gonna say this. I'm
They're
gonna say
not
this.
disciplining children. Those
or
guys aren't
We,
disciplining any
influencing,
children.
influencing.
No, they're in
I
a
think. I
role.
think the,
They're in
hold
a
on.
role in a
One
position.
moment. One moment. I think the one thing that's being overlooked here is policy. The people, even your admins are governed by policy. So it doesn't matter if it's male or female. They're being governed by school board and state policy, and that is being heavily influenced by female input. That's what people aren't
Okay,
looking
I'm gonna
at.
pull up the board. Let me. You said that. I'm gonna pull up the
No, no,
board.
no, no, no. I said
No,
policy,
No,
which
no,
is
the board.
influenced by
policy.
yeah.
the
The
Don't matter.
state.
majority
Yeah,
of the
don't matter who the
board.
board
The
you pull up.
majority
They
of
could
the
be sitting
board
there.
in Niagara Falls is white male. The majority of the board in Niagara Falls
That's
is
what y'all
white
talk.
male.
Y'all talking about black males. We're talking in males. Period. Yes, there
There's
is two men
one black
working
male
You're
and
not
in
one
looking
black
white.
at state
female.
policy.
There's
State
one black
policy
male and one
governs
black
what
female,
Listen,
any school
and the rest
district
are white
does.
male.
listen,
And
listen, folks.
they do not want sexual awareness being taught in the schools.
We about to get up out of here.
I'll
y'all
give
already
it.
got talking points. So when I ask y'all talking points for the week, y'all already should put them down so we can move
I'm
on
telling you.
because we still got a couple carryovers. Well, at least one.
Yeah,
We got to get
yeah.
out of
You know,
here.
we make some stuff. I know
Huh?
Can I start with
your
the closing
ancestors.
thought? 'Cause I'm flying.
Yeah.
'Cause I'm flying to Atlanta tomorrow.
All right.
Yeah.
We about to close it out.
All right. So here's my closing
Hurry up
thought.
now. We
Number
ain't
You
trying
one.
still
to
got to stay on and listen to everyone
2 minutes.
else's.
No, no. I'm
Two
gonna stay
minutes,
on.
Ortiz. We ain't
I'm gonna. I'm
trying
gonna
to be on
stay
here.
on.
I got
Tights.
to work
Tights.
in the
Tights.
morning.
No. I know. No. Thanks for letting me on again. I'm gonna stay on and listen to people's closing thoughts. So no, I just wanted to get this out because I got to pack. But shout out to the Manosphere meetup, which I'm going to speak at or whatever, getting these young brothers in IT. So can't wait to do that this weekend. Today we talked about emotionalism, and I think we gave good cases on why we need to lessen it. I also acknowledge where emotionalism is important because we're not robots, okay? So, yes, we should be emotionally happy when our kids do well or when they do bad and have emotional investment in it, but not for these strangers. We should look at things straight for the facts because how you defeat facts is knowing the facts and then appealing to that, what have you. And then you can add the emotional aspect to that. So, and we also talked about how that works in sexual relationships and how it's low level when people try to refuse sex. I left a topic up there in the group by a young lady who I do not agree with, the lovely Miss April Mason. She's a dark complexion, beautiful, wears her own hair, all these things that not should even matter, but lovely black woman. And she was talking about how women calm down. Sometimes listen to these men. They have a lot to say, and their voices have been shuttered down. The reason why you hear a lot of men on social media who do want to say their opinion because there was no vehicle in the 80s and 90s for men. When Essence was putting out all that garbage, when Ebony was putting out all that garbage about particularly black men, we didn't have an angle to come at that against, what have you. Whereas now, dudes don't care if we're talking about boys, and as I said, most of us at one time, we do have experience from that. For those of us who worked in these industries, listen, we acknowledge your points, but we also got to recognize that a change of the guard is happening.
Mhm.
We're the Gen Xers, okay? We're not the generation. I'm sorry, we're not Gen
Just
Y and or
I can't keep up
millennials.
with
That's
all
what
that
Gen Y
shit.
is. We're not millennials who are having the children nowadays whose children have wayward values. That's what it is. Someone's got some loud noise. But I will reign on the panel, but thanks for letting me on as you guys do every week. Hopefully, I don't think I may be on next week. I don't know what my flight, but I'm flying back Monday, what have you. But thanks again. It's always good to exchange the opinions because even if we disagree, it's going to force us to damn dial back, was I really being like this or whatever? Okay, maybe I need to consider that. So that's why I'm all about supporting the opinions, especially, I'm sorry, differing opinions. But if they can support it, it's even more value. Y'all have a good week. I'm still on. I'm just going on mute.
Thanks, brother. Appreciate you.
All right, my
Who's
man.
next? Who's next?
Come on, Lakeisha.
oh, I can go. Give me a
Well,
moment.
this is what I want to say is that I've always appreciated this platform for us being able to just be open, transparent, having fun. Everything's not all in just in seriousness. So I listen, and that's why I came back and I gave the. I do recall I can get the kids in shape a little bit more so than the father. I get it. Um, but just want to always encourage that, like I said again, enjoy the platform that we always can have these back and forth conversations because everyone has different upbringings, backgrounds, experiences that we can bring to the table. So I think we should, as long as we stay focused on that, this is all in learning and fun. and growing.
Hmm.
It's all good.
I agree. I agree.
Okay, I'm gonna stir some stuff up a little bit.
Hmm.
Uh-oh,
So
troublemaker. Troublemaker.
I am. Um, so we just heard you all very passionately explain to us uh, that
Emotionally.
they're based on your experiences,
Mhm.
and that by you being men and having lived this, that we need to take a step back and take note of what you're saying, that you know what you're talking about because you actually are men and you've actually lived this, right? So I just
Mhm.
want you to kind of like keep that same energy when you hear us say we're women, we know what we're talking about. For example, you can get pregnant while on your period. So that's going to be
Hey,
one
I
part
didn't
of the
argue that
comment.
one.
I'll leave
I
it
was
alone. I'm
listening.
just kind of saying keep that same energy, you know. Anyway, go
I was
ahead.
taking notes.
Good one. Good one, Christine.
I'm gonna go next. I again, just from the conversation, I really enjoyed the conversation. I always enjoy the show, but I showed these books, and I don't have the books in front of me that I wanted to show you guys. But if anybody out there has young men in their household, or working with young men, or have nephews and things like that in their household, Jawanza Kunjufu, he is actually the man who started this whole thing with working with young men and trying to create ways to help them to become successful without the use of textbooks and diddle sheets, because that was the hindrance that are affecting a lot of our young men. And as a result, you don't hear about him much because they try to keep him and his teachings out of the schools, not of the classrooms, because it is helping so many young men. And
Because he had a
so I just
he had a
want
series,
to,
right? Conspiracy to Destroy Black Boys or
yep,
something like that. A
yep.
series, yeah.
And so they blackballed him. A lot of those teacher unions and things like that blackballed him. So he speak. As a matter of fact, he reached out to me to do some stuff with him together, and like I said, but he's the one who started and founded a lot of the ideas that you hear about, especially when you hear about people talking about right brain learning and those kind of activities. He was the one who first started studying that and using that and teaching teachers and schools how to use that in the classroom. And they saw such a progress with black, especially black and brown students. Then all of a sudden, the schools and teachers and things like that, administrations that were not of minority color, started banning him from the schools. And so again, if it's something you want to do where you work with young people and you're looking for some ideas, the one book I held up, 100 plus educational strategies to teach children of color. That is a book that I use. I get it. I use a lot of ideas from here because it gives you activities that you can do in the classroom and in the home with students to help them to learn better. Again, in my closing, headshots can be deceiving.
Uh,
Have a good night.
all right, thanks, Willie. Wop.
I'll start. Misrepresentation of points should never be taken seriously. I have a question for you guys. Everybody out there listening. You want to be a victim or do you want to be a success story? Choose wisely. And as I like to say, growth and understanding occurs in the gray area. Godspeed. See you next time.
All right. It, for me, it was a lot, and it's so much. And like I always say, that's the beauty of it all. We all have our experiences. We all have our different situations. There's no right or wrong answers. And we can grow from each other. So I never want to discredit you ladies about, you know, your feelings on anything, as far as even with ours. And the one thing that stand out, and I often say to my students, like, man, like it's a it's a luxury to have all of these black and brown people that look like you that work in the school. I said, because when I was growing up, we got like one teacher. I mean, I can name their names. When I went to 60th Street School, there was Mr. Williams, there was Miss Brown. Then when I went to Gas Skill, and these are for Niagara Falls people that know that. I remember Pete Ivy, and I don't know. I can't even
Mr.
really think
Pete.
in about
He was
yeah.
wasn't he the bus driver?
No, he was like in charge of
Community center.
yeah, um, sort of like discipline and stuff like that. Then he worked. He was like the director of the community center and stuff like that. But there wasn't that many blacks in the schools. So now when I shifted, I became an educator, and my first job was at a in a public school setting. Was in well, I worked at Niagara Street School, but when I transitioned into a counselor position at a high school in Baltimore, we had our pick of the litter. Pick of the litter. You had social studies teachers that were black. You had black math teachers, male and females. You had black
Wow.
science teachers. You had black administration. And I always say to kids, like, man, I never had that luxury to be able to build relationships with people that want to help you. Not saying that Caucasians, the Hispanics, and all that.
Representation is
Yeah,
important.
yeah. But it was nice to see that. But this generation, it still didn't matter because if you're not connected to kids, it don't matter what color you are, they don't give a damn. And that's what they pretty
That's
much
right.
said. They didn't care. So that's the main thing to relationship building is the key to pretty much everything in life. If you don't have relationships with people in your home, at church, out in the community, or
Community.
whatever
Yeah.
the case, you don't have nothing. You don't have nothing if you can't build relationships. So I'm gonna close it out at that point. We got a lot, so it shouldn't be no issues with talking points for next week because we got a lot that's been left. People got their hands on their head or whatever the case is, but that's good because it means y'all uncomfortable with the way the stuff ended. So we got conversation for next week. We out. I appreciate you all.
Have a blessed night, everybody.
Please make posts in the counselor's corner and let's keep growing and let's keep having these uncomfortable conversations.
Good
Thank
night.
you all.
Safe travels
Good
Safe
to
night.
you,
travels.
All
guys.
right, Sir Tice,
Good
be
night.
safe, man.
Great
I
night,
can't wait to
everybody.
hear how
Safe travels, my
how
man.
everything went, man, down there in the manosphere.
Relationships is
Later.
Y'all have a good night.
All right, peace,
Good
everybody.
night.